Oh my goodness. Good morning, good afternoon. Whatever it is for you, I hope you're having a fantastic day. My name is Zach Schomler. This is Strong Opinion Sports, episode 659. And joining me is a person who dude, I love you, man. Like I really this is Logan, everyone. Hello. Say hi to Logan. Hi, Logan.
Hello, our listening audience that I enjoy interacting with so much.
Logan, I wanted to get you on kind of before the season started officially. I know college football is officially kind of begun. We're a day in, but I wanted to get you on camera on the podcast. You're like a huge part of, how do I say this? Like, if there is anyone behind the scenes other than me, it's you, right? Like, I appreciate you a lot. You've got like full control of the Discord. You could ruin my life if you wanted by like closing it all down. I've given you every permission. You're a co-commissioner of every fantasy league on the Patreon side. Like you're a big part of like what happens. And if I ever did hire anyone full time, you'd be the guy. Like I love you so much. And we have roots. Like we met in Hawaii, actually, which you don't live there. And it's kind of crazy how we met. It's like awesome. But I really just want to say, I appreciate you. I want to introduce you to the audience. I think occasionally you'll be on throughout the season. But you're also just, the community doesn't even realize how much they owe you for like how much you do behind the scenes. And I want to acknowledge that publicly and say thank you.
No, I mean, I just, it's not like I get anything from it other than just enjoyment. And listen, we all love ball. I love ball, and we talk football, we talk other sports, and I just enjoy having the community and getting to talk about, I mean, even life, and just it's a lot of fun. And you might not even know this, but that breakfast that we shared almost didn't happen because you DM'd me on Instagram like, hey, I'm in the area, do you want to get breakfast? I know you said months ago that you would if I came to the Big Island, and I was like so nervous I almost did not respond.
Crazy, dude.
That was such a missed opportunity, but yeah, no, I'm excited to be here.
I think of all like the Discord conversations and all the like all that's happened since then, and it just, I don't know. You're like our community manager almost, like for lack of a better term at this point. And just want to say thank you. The plan today is it's a really low effort episode. Let's be very clear. Like I want to talk about the things you're excited about going into the season. Kind of just pose questions. I view football like science, where, for example, Cameron Ward in University of Miami, their system, that's kind of a science experiment. I think it's going to go really well. My hypothesis is he's the best quarterback in college football. Let's see what happens. But I want to pose a lot of these questions today. Ask a question, and then throughout the year, we'll see. Does it work out? Does it not? On top of that, though, if you want, I'd like to talk about what I watched yesterday in college football, because we're here. It's happening. It's fresh in my mind. And then at the end, because I think some people hate Connor Stalions a lot. And I don't. But I don't want to piss people off. I want to like make it optional almost. Or if you hate him that much, we'll just bury that part at the end. We'll talk about the Untold Netflix documentary. But I watched it, and I had a lot to say and found it very compelling and propaganda-ish maybe, but very interesting. So we'll talk about the Connor Stalions documentary at the end. But that's the plan for today. Does that sound good?
Yeah. Maybe, Ohio State fans try to stick through the whole episode, but that bit will be at the end if you need to excuse yourself.
Dude, one of my clients, I sold him multiple systems in HVAC, and I think I took really good care of his family. I also, like our company 6 years ago, had done something that kind of we made a mistake, and I righted that wrong by helping him a lot. He went to Michigan. He's a lawyer, and he's like a diehard Michigan fan. And I was like, I wanted to text him this morning. I was like, have you seen the Connor Stalions documentary? And then I didn't. I was like, I don't know do Michigan people like that? Do they not like that? I don't know how a Michigan fan would feel. I just feel myself like an objective third party. And I'm like, God, I think it's one of the more, I hate Untold, actually. I think it's not a very good documentary series. Like you watch 30 for 30 and it's so much better and way more well done. Untold is like its crappy little brother. However, this one is just like probably the most interesting, I think, Untold documentary so far. It's like this is like the one. They nailed it, I thought.
It's unfortunate I started with the best one. I got all of them in my watch laters.
Dude, it's all downhill from here. The worst one is Swamp Kings, the Florida one. There's so much left out. It's like, what are we doing? Like,
that's the one I'm most excited for.
No, it's objectively like by far the worst one. It's not even close. But let's talk about what we saw yesterday. I guess I don't know if was this yesterday or Friday. I watched Georgia kind of like it was an ugly game. It was like dragging someone through mud for like the first half. Georgia beat Clemson, fairly considerably, but it was just not. I want to just kind of put a comment out there. Um, you know, Clemson's number 14 team in the country. Georgia's number 1. I think Georgia is squarely the number 1 team in the country. I feel like Georgia kind of got robbed last year. I watched that Michigan documentary. You watch them win the national title. I think if Georgia had been allowed into the college football playoff, I don't know that Michigan title would have happened. I really think Georgia kind of got snubbed. I still think they're the best team in college football. They had a slow start yesterday against Clemson. Both teams were slow. In the second half, Georgia got going. But the thing that stands out to me is that Clemson physically can hang with Georgia. I was surprised by that. The line of scrimmage was better than I thought. But Clemson has no dynamic playmakers at all on offense. Their quarterback is a dud. They don't have anyone who can make big plays. It's very evident that Dabo Swinney is behind the times with the transfer portal. It's a big storyline, but it's very true. And I actually would compare Clemson football to the Pittsburgh Steelers, where you got this coach who was successful, who's been there a long time, but it's running its course and changes aren't happening and things that need to be done are not happening. Especially the offense is really, really behind the times. And I don't know if you have anything to add, but I just saw a Clemson football team that was really disappointing, and a quarterback, Cade Klubnik, who was just really unremarkable and average and just not good enough, and not like he's not a high level athlete, doesn't have an incredible arm. He's winning because of their system, if at all, and the system isn't very good either. So you're like, what are we doing here? There's nothing special or remarkable about this kid at all. I don't mean to hate on him. I'm sure he's better than I was at that age, but like it's just not great. And not if you have anything to add, but the Georgia game, I was hoping for maybe something interesting, and there was nothing there to me.
I mean, I agree with you. Just first off, that I think Georgia was the only team last year that probably could have taken down Michigan. I mean, Alabama was close too, but I think Georgia, if they had gotten into the college football playoff, that that national championship could have been Georgia's. As far as the game, well, not necessarily the game, but just Dabo Swinney, I understand why he's frustrated with the transfer portal and NIL. I definitely do not envy his position as a college football head coach, but I just don't think that him kind of putting his foot down, I just don't think he's going to win that culture war with the NCAA. And I think he needs to either adapt or, the boosters are going to get him out of there eventually. Cause I don't really see Clemson going anywhere if they don't want to, put their foot on the gas a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. It's like denying the reality we live in. It's like if a law got changed and you're like, well, I'm not doing it. It's like, well, but that's how it is now. Like you can't, sorry, but that is the way things are. And you're denying the objective reality of how college football works now. I don't know. I would hate to coach in college. I don't know. I've gone back and forth on this. Like, I think coaching full time would be incredible. It'd be really fun. Recruiting would really suck. Like, I think that would be, yeah. I don't know. I think it's probably like sales where but you're a traveling salesman basically. And it's compared to the NFL, coaching in college is such a time commitment. And I understand Dabo I think we're on the same page. Like, yeah, it kind of sucks where college football has gone to, but that also is how it is. And the teams that are going to win are the teams that are going to exploit that the best. Like, I think Ole Miss actually this year, who's going to be really good, did a great job in the transfer portal. You look at Ohio State, you look at LSU, you look at Georgia, they're all using it and dominating, and Clemson is falling farther and farther behind. And it's exactly why. It's so clear. I don't know if you watched the Notre Dame Texas A&M game. I hope you did not. It was garbage, dude. It was so bad. It was boring as hell. I was sitting waiting like, I'm realizing I hate games with bad quarterbacks. Like Riley Leonard at Notre Dame, he wasn't bad. I think he's got potential, but maybe by the end of the year. This was by far Notre Dame's most difficult game probably all year. But man, Riley Leonard was really unimpressive. The Wygant, what's it? Wigert? What's the kid's name at Texas A&M? He played like 4 games last year, then got hurt. I want to find his name. His name is, God bless him, he was so mundane. Connor Weigman. Thank you. He not an unremarkable arm. He not a great athlete. He was 12 for 30 passing, 100 yards, 2 interceptions. It was so frustrating to watch. Like, Riley Leonard was acceptable. Connor Weigman was bad. And they're like, oh, we got a kid who doesn't have a great arm, not a great athlete. What are we doing? How can Texas A&M have this much money and be managing their program so horribly? And Colin Klein, the former Heisman Trophy finalist, is the offensive coordinator there. I don't think he's doing a bad job. I just think they've got a quarterback who's limited. And it's like, well, if that's the best you can trot out there, you're in the state of Texas with incredible recruiting, quarterbacks across like everywhere in that state, and you can't find one that can play. Like, how is this possible? Why didn't you take the kid who went to Duke, Malik, whatever his name is, the quarterback at Duke is really good. You should have stolen the Texas backup quarterback. Like, do something. I don't know. I just found Texas A&M. They lost 23-13 to Notre Dame. Notre Dame is probably going to run the table, and Texas A&M was really disappointing to me. The only other thing worth talking about, I think, from yesterday, today LSU plays USC. That'll be a treat. I can't wait for that. My boy Cameron Ward. Can you tell the audience how long I've been talking about Cameron Ward? I think finally I got vindicated, and validated. I've been saying for years this kid is like the best quarterback, or potential to be the best quarterback in college football. People finally saw yesterday when Miami dominated Florida. Can you just enlighten the audience how long I've been talking about Cameron Ward? I know you've been there the whole time.
I remember we were talking about Cameron Ward, like, I don't know, almost a year ago, and I was like, do you think he'd be good, on the Vikings with Kevin O'Connell? I think maybe it was around the time Kirk Cousins got injured, and I was like, yeah, this season is completely over. How do you think that would work? And you were selling me on him. You were getting me excited, like, oh, I think he looked great. And no, you've definitely been on the Cam Ward train for a while.
I think Cam Ward could have came out into the NFL last year and been like maybe I'm the only one paying attention. I thought he was like a second round talent, right? Where he's maybe not as polished. People aren't comfortable drafting a kid who's, maybe not ready in the first round. He could have been drafted in the second round to like Minnesota or something and become a great starting quarterback. What he showed against Florida yesterday was, and I love Miami's system, like philosophy. I don't really like their coach, Mario Cristobal. I've got high level concerns. Nathan, the other co-host, absolutely hates Mario Cristobal because he had to endure him at Oregon. To me, like, Mario Cristobal has to win and run the table this year. They've got clearly the best team in the ACC, but what they do in Miami, they've got a lot of air raid concepts paired with a commitment to running the football. And I don't know that they won because of the system yesterday. It was very clear Cameron Ward was making plays out of structure and making stuff happen. But Cameron Ward, I just really honestly, my first takeaway is how in the fuck did Ohio State not pay what was required to get Cameron Ward to play there? Like, Cameron Ward plus Chip Kelly plus Ohio State's roster is a national title in the making, I think. And if Ohio State does fall short, look, Miami's not going to win a national title this year. The minute even they got Cam Ward, they became competitive, but they weren't going to do that. Cameron Ward, I think, took the money and went to Miami and was happy to be in a place that's it's fun to live and a coach that wants him. And, Ohio State's lack of willingness to pay him basically tells him probably, hey, they don't want me that bad. Ohio State settled for a lesser quarterback, and I think they're going to pay for it, dude. I think the best quarterback in college football is Cameron Ward. You watched him, he threw an interception early where it's like he's rolling to the left, makes a throw like kind of underhand across the middle of the field. And I was worried, like, hey, I hope this doesn't make him gun shy. Cameron Ward didn't get gun shy. He kept slinging all day, making plays outside the pocket. He also showed he knows football really well. Like, many times, there is a play that really stands out to me where they sent a corner blitz off the edge. He made a check at the line. He throws a 5-yard hitch to beat the corner blitz. Like, he's doing a lot of stuff pre-snap that not every quarterback in the first game in a new system could do. He's got everything physically. I think he's the best athlete probably at the quarterback position. Maybe not best athlete, but the best, how do I say this, kid extending plays in a Mahomes-like way of like keeping the play alive. If you ask me, he is the number one quarterback in the country. He should be the number one pick or the top quarterback off the board next year. I hope he doesn't go somewhere like New York, but that's probably what's going to happen. I'd love to see him with the Raiders. But Cameron Ward is unbelievable. Going to have a great year. I think he showed that yesterday, and the rest of the country went, oh, yeah. He can make plays out of the pocket. He can make plays in structure. He's really smart. He's got a really good understanding of what they're doing on offense. Oh, and by the way, they can run the football really well at Miami. I just love Cameron Ward. That's my number one takeaway from college football week 1, basically before the USC game, before there's another game on Monday, I believe. I forget who it is.
Is it Florida State? Did they play? Because they played week,
I don't know. So USC plays LSU. I think there is one more game this weekend
Because I
that's
think
worth
Florida
noting.
State's is weird because they were like out of, they were in Ireland.
Yeah, I don't see another game. I thought there was one Monday, but maybe I'm wrong. Although if I were scheduling,
Florida State versus Boston College tomorrow, I'm seeing.
okay, yeah, Florida State losing to Georgia Tech week one is rough. But by the way, we're talking about the state of Florida. Florida as a program, the SEC team, Florida, losing to Miami week one badly. They lost. Gosh, what was it? It was 42-17, I believe. It's funny, like you talk about these games. I watched the entire game, but by then you're like, I don't even care the final score. It's a blowout. Yeah, 41-17, Miami beat Florida. Billy Napier, the Florida head coach, is on his way out. I don't know when it's going to happen, but their schedule is like insane at the end of the year. They're already losing games. They lost to an ACC team now. Billy Napier's a dead man walking at that Florida job. I feel bad for him. They did look better. They put DJ Lagway in at quarterback, who is he was like the number one dual threat quarterback in the country, and he looked really good. Really good's a stretch maybe, but he made the Florida offense better when he came in. It's garbage time. It's hard to evaluate that, but I wouldn't mind seeing DJ Lagway play more the rest of this year at Florida. But do you have anything to add? Anything I've said so far? I just wanted to cover this stuff because I watch it. It's fresh to mind. I want to get it out of my brain basically and out onto a microphone.
Yeah, I think kind of going back to when we were talking about Cam Ward, when you and I were talking about Cameron Ward last year, we were both talking about him like he was coming out of college, in the 2024 draft. And he's extremely talented. I do think that maybe the Raiders have too many floor raisers to end up with the number one overall pick. So I could definitely see him going to the Giants or just, New York in general. But yeah, I hope that he gets put in a situation that works out well for him because he's just a really good athlete, like you were saying. And I think that early interception is just one of those things like, okay, the season is started now. I'm not going to get away with that, but you don't get gun shy. You end up throwing 3 touchdowns and you win the game by 24 points. So I think that was really good. Just quick adaptation on the fly for him. And I'm really excited. But yeah, I also don't trust Mario Cristobal, to be perfectly clear.
Yeah, again, Miami, if they don't run the table this year, they're clearly the best team in that conference. Like they're really, really talented. And in my opinion, we've seen Mario Cristobal squander really talented teams before. And so it's like, man, like you have to run the table. You have to win the ACC. You got to make a college football playoff appearance with this team. And if you don't, you probably should move on from Mario Cristobal because the talent is there. And you got to find a coach that can properly manage that talent. You're paying him so much money to not make it work would be crazy. I wonder though if I think Miami might be the best team in the state of Florida, which is really a compliment, honestly, as far as talent wise. And he's recruiting well. I thought he did well at Oregon. Remember, like I think was underperformed at Oregon when he was a head coach there, but he did still win a Pac-12 title. He still had Justin Herbert. I thought the way he handled Justin Herbert. In fact, part of why I said Cameron Ward shouldn't go to Miami was how like inconsistent Herbert was in college his final year going into the NFL. And how clear it was that when Justin Herbert went to the Chargers, he got way better coaching. And you're like, well, like, I don't know that that's totally not what I would want to do. Yeah, like you should have gone to play for Chip Kelly at Ohio State. I think it's such a missed opportunity that Ohio State doesn't have Cameron Ward on their roster. But yeah, man, I really love Cameron Ward, and I hope he goes somewhere. I said something, by the way. I said he's a great athlete. He's a great athlete in that he can extend plays. He's really not a runner. Like he's not going to run. He's not Anthony Richardson. He's not going to run for a ton of yards downfield, but he's going to keep plays alive. He's going to get out of the pocket and run from the pocket to the sideline. And in that, 10 to 15 yard distance, he's going to keep a play alive and throw the ball downfield. And he's very, very slippery. He's hard to tackle. He's hard to sack. But he's not a great athlete. He's not Lamar Jackson running. He's Patrick Mahomes. Yeah. He's keeping the play alive. He's not running for 40 yards and a touchdown, in my opinion.
Yeah.
The other thing I want to say, I guess I didn't watch this game. Nathan did. I'm sure I'll talk about it with Nathan. We're recording tomorrow. But Oregon, they won 24-14 against Idaho. And Idaho is a Big Sky FCS program. Like they are a D1 AA program. And they're not even a good one, by the way. They're like a bad D1 AA program. For Oregon to have a ugly win over Idaho is terrifying. I thought Oregon was one of the best teams in the country. I full transparency, haven't watched the game at all. I just saw the scores. I was tracking it as I was watching other games, and I was like, how is Oregon struggling to pull away against this football team? They should have won like 74-10. And so that was an alarming one. If you're a Big Ten fan, I know you live in Big Ten country, paying attention to Oregon for the first time, you're like kind of laughing at Oregon, like, I'm not intimidated at all. These guys can't even beat Idaho barely. Does that stand out to you? I just thought that was like an early warning signal.
I didn't watch the game either, just to be transparent, but I was kind of shocked when I saw the score. Like, I think if you're Oregon, that has to be a wake up. Like, that has to be a reality check, because you can't just be like, oh, we're so talented, we're number 3 in the nation, it's Idaho, who cares? Like, no, I understand that it's a less talented football team, but you have to show up. You have to be prepared. And if Oregon is going to be this way all year, I think that would be a real disservice to the college football world, just because it's an exciting team, and I think for all this hype, to open it with kind of a dud makes you really nervous for the rest of the year. They got the win, so that's what matters, but they need to put this behind them really quick.
I want to watch this game. So here's touchdown, punt, missed field goal, touchdown, fumble, punt, turnover and downs, field goal, touchdown, punt. And listen to the stat line for Dylan Gabriel, the Oregon quarterback.
I'm looking
41 for 49, 380 yards, 2 touchdowns. He had a great game by the numbers. Like, that's a game where you should have 5 touchdowns. You should win easily. So something happened, I think, in the way they finished drives yesterday, which is concerning. Is the first game jitters? I don't know. I probably after this, I'm going to go watch that game in preparation for tomorrow's episode. But I want to point that out now. Like, hey, that's a weird outcome that is worth acknowledging. And I hope it's not an early warning sign that Oregon is not who we thought they were.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. I don't know if it's red zone inefficiency or what's going on, but yeah, I was looking at that stat line. Extremely efficient, killed them on time of possession, won the turnover battle, had 3 times as many first downs. I mean, you should win that game by like 30, 40 points based on the stats.
Yeah. And the defense, I thought was okay. Nathan told me, I can't remember what Nathan said. I think he said something about the defense. Honestly, I got to watch the game. I don't know. But to me, that's a team not finishing drives like that. Just without watching it yet, I'm going to watch it. But to me, it's like, oh, like they're right there, but they got to finish drives. But how can you not be finishing drives against Idaho? However, this is why you play a game like Idaho week 1 and not, you don't schedule Michigan week 1 is to fix it and clean up any miscues you have maybe going on. It's like, that's why you have a preseason NFL season. It's to clean it up. So hopefully this game is just Oregon, having kind of a skid mark or a speed bump in the road and realizing like we got to clean some stuff up. But they're right there, like stat wise. It's like, that's a game you should dominate. Anything else from college football week 1 so far stand out to you? Anything you want to mention? I know you live in Big Ten country. I love the middle of the country where you live. I do. I really have a heart for the Midwest and that area. Tell me anything you want to add.
I won't get on my Minnesota soapbox too much, but you lost to UNC with a backup quarterback at home. And you kind of choked it down the stretch. Offense looked terrible. That's all I have to say, because that's the game I paid most attention to. But I think Minnesota is going to be mediocre at best this year.
Well, let's talk about it, because I like PJ Fleck, their head coach. And I think he's going to be there a long. I think he's the coach and going to be there for a long time. They don't have a lot of money to spend. They're not one of the big boys in college football. They found their guy that they're comfortable with. He's kind of like their Kirk Ferentz at Iowa. I think he's going to be there for 20, 30 years. What do you make of PJ Fleck? What do you make of the Minnesota program? Excuse me. It's weird. They're in a weird place because they're kind of like Vanderbilt in the SEC, where they're just never probably going to be at the top. They're going to maybe occasionally have a great year in this 20-year stretch with PJ Fleck. Tell me about the state of the program at Minnesota, because I don't really understand a team like Minnesota, like a program like that's never going to win, that doesn't really try to win 10 games. They're not going to spend the money required. They're not going to invest the money to do that. They've just accepted we're not Ohio State, we're not Michigan. The rare season we go to a bowl game or do well, we're happy. What's up with that? I don't understand that approach to college football. Is it a money thing? What's your take on that?
I mean, it probably is just kind of a money thing. Like, as long as we're competitive and the stadium is mostly packed, then that's fine. Because again, Minnesota is just never gonna compete for a national championship. It would be nice to make the playoffs now in the extended format. That's something that's kind of could be a reality. I never once thought, well, maybe one time in 2019. I only once thought that Minnesota could make the college football playoff, but no, it's not really a reality. And I would love for PJ Fleck to be there a long time. I am a little concerned with kind of when the offense was just completely dead against UNC, that it seemed like he was the only guy on the sideline that was trying to get the team back into the game mentally. He was, hyping people up on the sidelines, and the sideline just looked completely dead. And I don't know if it's the players aren't responding to his messaging or what's going on. But you look on the other side, and UNC, all their players are, dabbing each other up. They're getting each other into the game. And so I don't know if, players just kind of fell out of the culture, or maybe it's just early and you just feel a little shell shocked. But yeah, I just think Minnesota is just not really a talented roster in general. They can't hang with most of the Big Ten, and I just hopefully they have some better recruiting classes in the future. But 2024 is not going to be one for the record books in the memory.
No, Minnesota's such a weird program because I love Peach. It's weird to love a coach who's probably never going to win it big time, right? He's just kind of he's going to always be middling because of what's around him and the money there and the support there and the commitment. There's not a commitment to winning. Like, you look at Ohio State, how much money they're spending in the transfer portal. You look at Michigan, you look at Oregon, you look at these top pro USC, like that's a college committed to winning football games. Something about Minnesota, and I used to live in Minnesota as a kid. That's a state that cares about the Vikings. You look at Ohio State. Ohio State's the thing. Like, I know the Browns are there, I know the Bengals are there, but everyone is more loyal to Ohio State than they are to their local NFL team. Michigan is the thing to do. I know they've got the Detroit Lions. People love the Lions, but the Lions are kind of second fiddle to Michigan football. Like, it's a state that doesn't care as much about Minnesota football. And maybe if Minnesota would win, they could eventually get some relevance and some care, but it's like, it's our team. We love them, but it's never going to be, we're committed. We want to see that. I think people would celebrate more the Vikings winning a Super Bowl than the Minnesota football team making a college football playoff game. If they were like a 12 seed or something. And that would be a similar level of accomplishment in my mind, honestly.
I think people would be more excited if the Vikings made the Super Bowl than if the Gophers won the national championship, just based on the level of excitement for the teams.
Oh, dude, I love Minnesota's awesome. I've thought about. I don't want to go there, but let's talk about like the main reason we're here today. We actually didn't do this to talk about college football. I want to talk about the NFL. I want to talk about college if you have it. Like one question, I want to go back and forth and pose questions, and we'll debate each one and what could possibly happen. But one thing that stood out to me yesterday, I watched Drew Allar, the Penn State quarterback, against West Virginia. And he looked probably the best I've ever seen him. And West Virginia is not, it's not like beating, Ohio State or Michigan. It's not like a legit great program, but it's still a D1 FBS program. It's not like playing Idaho and struggling. I thought Drew Allar playing well against West Virginia meant something to me. I was like, oh, interesting. And so I want to pose the question. I've been really hard on Drew Allar, the Penn State quarterback, for a long time. And that Penn State, really talented football team. They do a lot of things well. Their defense is great. They're well coached. The quarterback has been a limiting factor, especially last year. Here's my question. Should I take Penn State seriously? Is Drew Allar gotten better? Has Drew Allar made enough improvements to beat a team like Michigan, to beat a team like Ohio State? He looked like he worked really hard in the offseason and got better. We don't need to determine that now, but it's a question to pose for the rest of the year to kind of judge the rest of the year against. And that's what this episode's about, is asking questions. What do you make of that? Do you think that's possible for Drew Allar, the Penn State quarterback?
Yeah, I mean, he was really efficient. He only threw the ball 17 times. Made or I should say, he was efficient as far as he threw 3 touchdowns with only 17 attempts. And I think it's still really early. It's going to come down to that tough stretch: Wisconsin, Ohio State, USC in October and early November. But you're ranked 8th in the nation to start the season, and I think Drew Allar could definitely take Penn State to the college football playoff. How
I think
it is
it's
to
a
be
given. By
determined.
the way, I think they're probably already in. It's can they actually win in the playoff? Is kind of the question.
Yeah. I guess to rephrase, yeah. How will Drew Aller look in that tough stretch and in the college football playoff? But I would agree because Penn State just never seemed to have the juice to beat the big teams. The last, especially last year, it would just they weren't as much of a threat as they have been. And so if Drew Aller can get them more in the conversation in the Big Ten, I think that'll be a huge win for him.
So I'm going to call that my first question. The thing I'm interested in for this football season. Uh, let's start with your number one thing. What's the thing you like? Your big question, the thing you're excited about for this college football season or this NFL season?
Just while we're talking about college football, I might as well bring up the one college football question I have out of my 10, and that is, can Cam Rising and Utah make the college football playoffs? 2 years ago, not including last year, but 2 years ago, they were ranked 10 in the AP poll to finish the year, and the year before that, they were ranked 12th, and they lost the Rose Bowl both times. Last year, Cam Rising was injured. I totally think that Utah could make the college football playoffs, and Utah has had some big upsets in the past. The BCS Buster. I would love to see Utah with an actual quarterback because last year was abysmal on offense for them. And I would love to see what Utah can do in the playoffs this year. Last year they only threw 15 passing touchdowns, and this year Cam Rising already has 5 in one game. So it's already a huge shift on offense, and I'm excited to see what they can do because their defense is really good.
Dude, I love Kyle Whittingham, the head coach at Utah. I was there. I broadcasted once Washington State against Utah down in Salt Lake City, and saw that program up close. In fact, it's funny. Right after that, I actually started looking at going back to the college football, and one of the things I was considering was walking out of Utah or walking out of Iowa. Partly because I like the culture, like their teams that run the ball football well. I knew if I was ever going to play, like I need a good running game because I'm not a great athlete. I'm really small, but also I just liked the program, and I would have never probably got on the field if I ever had walked on to Utah. But I liked the program there. I like what they did, and really the question to me is, can Cam Rising stay healthy? Because Utah, I mean, look at when he has been healthy. They were beating USC. They were beating Oregon. There was a stretch where Utah was the best team in the Pac-12, like for real. And most talented, best athletes, like winning with really good coaching. I really admire and respect Utah a lot, actually. And their schedule, they're in the Big 12 this year. They only got a couple tough games. One of them is a former Pac-12 game. They play number 21 ranked Arizona, September 28th. Early September 21st, they play Oklahoma State. After that, though, like they play Baylor, Utah State, those 2 tough games I talked about, Oklahoma State, Arizona, but then Arizona State, TCU, Houston, BYU, Colorado, Iowa State, UCF. They could easily run the table. Like to me, it's clear Utah is going to win the Big 12. They should. They're the best team in that conference, and that's going to get them into the Big 12, into the NCAA. What's the right word? A college football playoff. The top 12 teams. Can they actually win? I don't know, but they're, I think, a shoo-in, my opinion, for a college football playoff game. Can they win is the question. I mean, I don't think they can steal a game against like Ohio State, but I could see them as a second or third round team in that process. It's going to come up short, assuming their quarterback Cam Rising can play well. But I'm with you. It's a good question. And I want to just get it out there. I really admire Utah. Like Kyle Whittingham, similar to like PJ Fleck at Minnesota, is going to be probably the lifelong coach of that program. He's going to be there his entire career, the rest of his career, and going to be there 20, 30 years. He's a mainstay in that program, and it's for a good reason. He's a really good coach. He treats people well, and people that work there love him. I know that for a fact. I don't know, man. I don't have much to add, but I think it's an interesting question, and I'm ready to answer. Like, yeah, they're going to be a college football playoff team. I got a similar one. Now let's transition to the NFL. You know, we debated this in the NFL predictions episode, me and Nathan. I gave the Chargers 4 wins, which is going to be, like, you read the comments on that video, that's like the number one thing everyone points out. Like, you're crazy, I hate you. And it's funny, I think people react to the number, but don't actually listen to the segment, which is we talk about, like, how long is it going to take for Jim Harbaugh to win? If he wins immediately, that's going to be way more than 4 wins. If it takes longer, it's probably like a 4-win season. My question to you is, how long until Jim Harbaugh wins in LA with the Chargers? I think it's a given he's going to win at some point, right? Is it this year? Is it middle of this year? Is it late this year? Is it next year? I don't know. But they're going to win at some point and do well. I just don't know how long that process is going to take. What do you say?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't got a chance to watch the episode yet. I'm very excited to. I was busy all day yesterday, so you're getting my live, you're getting my live reaction to that. And 4 wins, just saying that sounds shocking, but I know you're going through every game, and I mean, they're not starting from zero. Obviously, they have a franchise quarterback, but I would say that there was a Brandon Staley sized bomb that kind of went off, and they're completely rebuilding the culture there in Los Angeles. And I think to expect immediate results, I think if you put low expectations, then if they exceed that, then you feel better. But if you put this expectation like, oh, the Chargers are going to win 10 games this year, and they win 6, then you're going to be asking all these questions that you shouldn't have been asking in the first place. So I don't know how long it's going to take Jim Harbaugh, but he's built, true championship contenders everywhere he's gone. He took the 49ers to the Super Bowl almost immediately. He took them to the NFC Championship game even the year before that. I don't know how long it's going to take him, but he's starting to get his people in the building, his players in the building, and I'm really excited to see what they can do. I think that, I mean, it's so hard to put expectations on it, but they should be, playoff contenders, not just hopefully making the playoff. They should be contenders in the playoffs within a couple of years. I think that he's a really talented coach, and I think that the players are really bought in there. I just don't think they're ready yet. I don't think they have the horses yet to really push the rest of the NFL. And that's okay. If you only win 4 games, you're going to get a good draft pick. You can get a really talented guy out of the draft, and that's going to help your future advance towards a Super Bowl.
I guess, yeah, I like what you said about expectations. I'm really patient with Jim Harbaugh there. Like I'm going to give him a long time till he needs to win. And then if he wins sooner, great. Khalil Mack is aging. Joey Bosa's often injured. The defense, they lost a lot of people. The receiving core is here's a question. Joshua Palmer, Ladd McConkey, Quentin Johnson, DJ Chark, Brendan Rice. These, frankly, like lower end, no name receivers. That's a mean way to put it, but for like the average college football, the average fan of football, like these are not household names. Ladd McConkey, I guess if you watch college football, sure, at Georgia, but also how good is Ladd McConkey? I don't know. My point is like, how much can they do with an elite quarterback and a fairly middle of the road, like, average receiving core, Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins at running back, a offensive line they're building? I don't know. I mean, I guess like we'll do a reevaluation at some point right before the season starts of that Chargers prediction. 4 wins felt low to me too, but then I was like, where do I give them more wins? I'm like, well, I think the Broncos are going to make progress, and like the consequence of giving a win to the Chargers is taking a win from someone else, and I just didn't want to do that yet. 4 wins felt low though. Maybe it's 8. I don't think they're a contender yet, and it's really going to depend on how good the coaching is and how much they can, take advantage and how much progress they can make with more average receivers. Ladd McConkey, Quentin Johnson, Joshua Palmer, these names they're fine. They're pros. They work hard. I actually like DJ Chark a lot. Brandon Rice has potential there, man. But it's going to take time, and I'm just really patient. And I think you said something interesting. Are Charger fans going to be disappointed? If they expect 10 wins, they might be. If you expect 4 and they win 8, you're going to be really happy. I have no doubt that come January, I'm going to be really satisfied with what Jim Harbaugh did this year, no matter what, because I just don't expect very much. Anything above 4 wins is going to be great. And I do expect he's going to win in time. The question is how long that takes. Let's say this, though. He won pretty quickly at Michigan. He won pretty quickly with the 49ers. They have talent there. He's got an elite quarterback. And maybe with an elite quarterback, they don't need as much talent at the skill positions around their quarterback. I don't know. I also, you look at what they've done before. When has Jim Harbaugh ever won with great talented skill players? He never has had to have that. Like he had McCaffrey, I guess, at Stanford, but like Michigan wasn't known for their incredible star receiver, their incredible stud running back. Like Blake Corum was good. Roman Wilson was good. They had JJ McCarthy, but even people doubted JJ McCarthy. Maybe the system is better than the skill positions need to be, and they elevate people, especially with Justin Herbert. So that's my question. How long until Jim Harbaugh wins in LA? Is it immediately? Is it end of the year? Is it next year? I don't know, but that's going to be fun to find out this year during the NFL season. What's your next question you want to pose?
All right, my next question is Washington cured of Snyder-itis?
Oh,
They got the bad man out of the building. And are we going to be making some progress just as a franchise, even if they're not, winning games this year? I'm not expecting them to make the playoff. That's not even what I'm looking for. That franchise was so dysfunctional from top to bottom, and especially from the top. I mean, they've had more name changes than playoff wins since 2000. I mean, that's insane. Like, just they haven't won a playoff game since 2005. They have a really exciting young quarterback. They got a new head coach. They got a new owner. I'm really just looking for some, consistency. I'm looking for competitiveness. I'm looking for Jaden Daniels not to get sacked 800 times. I know that's more of a little bit of an on-field product, but yeah, is Washington going to mature as a franchise now that Dan Snyder is gone?
I think yes. I mean, I think bringing in Dan Quinn as head coach, they put an adult in the chair, basically. Like Dan Quinn, I think even had problems in Atlanta, but I think it spent a lot of time with the Cowboys developing and learning and growing. He's a different coach than he was when he got fired and left Atlanta. Um, Dan Quinn is the adult in the room. They got Cliff Kingsbury, offensive coordinator. It's funny to have two fired former head coaches, right? but I think also truly, like when you go through losses, like I got fired recently actually as an offensive coordinator, and it probably made me a better coach someday if I ever do coach again, right? Your life is kind of like a video game where you're just leveling up all the whole way and you're learning from your mistakes. Like when you play, this is such a silly analogy, but like the video game Dark Souls, no one beats a boss the first try, right? You go in, you get your ass kicked and you learn from it and you make adjustments. In fact, that's like one of the weird things I would advocate for everyone playing Dark Souls is it's going to teach you to make adjustments and do like harsh self, evaluation. That's what I think happened with Dan Quinn and Cliff Kingsbury. They've got a really dynamic quarterback. They've got a new owner. They're trying to make the building a place that people enjoy going to work in. I know Sam Hartman, he's on the practice squad. He's really enjoying being a backup quarterback to Jaden Daniels. Like it's a place that seems to have a change have happened and people like being there. Dude, and I think Jaden Daniels is so like under the radar. Like people aren't talking about, I watched him in the preseason a little bit and you're like, dude, he's a great athlete. They're going to scheme up him running a couple times. It really reminds me of RG3 actually when he went there. And I think he might be better than RG3 was, more ready for the NFL. Dude can run, kid can throw. I'm really excited for Washington. I don't know that. I mean, they might be the second best team in that division, honestly. The Giants are awful. The Cowboys, I'm not going to put any faith in. I saw Washington as like maybe an 8-win team, something like that, and maybe finishing ahead of Dallas. So my answer is, yeah, I've got faith and confidence that the Snyder-itis is gone and things are changing in Washington. If they win 6 games, but they're competitive and it's fun, that's a great year for Washington. It's a big step forward. And it's like, if they can set themselves up to be good, not next year even, but the year after next year, like they're really just making progress and making this slow transition towards a good football team. That would be a really successful year for Washington. Anything you want to add? I actually feel like that's exactly on point. It's a really good question to ask.
Yeah, like Washington has kind of been like nuclear waste for the last few years. Like, if you're a free agent, do not go there. Maybe not as much last year because they already had a new owner, but he wasn't really able to get the ball rolling as far as what he wants to do. So Washington just needs to be a neutral destination. It doesn't have to be the destination if you're a free agent, but it has to seem like a place that you would be okay with playing. They need to get some wins. I really like who they brought in. I think both of those coaches getting fired previously, they're not going to be the greatest offensive coordinator and head coach in the league, but I think that they both definitely took something away from getting fired and learned from that. And I'm excited
Washington is like the restaurant in your town that's got like many health code violations. And you're like, I'm not going to eat there. Like, are you
Yeah.
kidding? Dude, no
And you
way.
tell your friends and family don't eat there
Yeah.
when they come to town. That's what I'm sure that players in free agency, they talk and it's like, hey, I got these two teams. You played at Washington, a couple years ago, and you left. What were your thoughts on it? And I'm sure that players were like, oh, don't go there because this and that, and I think that they did really bad on those, like the Players Association polls where they kind of rank everything. I think Washington was near dead last in most categories. So
Yeah.
they need to raise the floor on themselves as a franchise. And I'm really excited. I'm excited for Jaden Daniels. I think he's really good. I almost got him in the draft last night. I think I think no one's talking about Washington, and I think they're a great sleeper team to just be okay, and that's amazing for them.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, hey, the restaurant's full and they got a new owner and no one's dying from COVID or whatever. Like, no one's getting like
Yeah.
Giardio and they go eat there or whatever. I don't know. It's like they're changing things. Here's my question. My next one. Are the Jets finally going to be good? Like, I fell for it last year. And what's funny is like, it wasn't like a team that you believed in and then had some, they just played bad. Like, they got royally fucked 4 plays into the year. Like their Hall of Fame quarterback goes down with a torn Achilles. They still had a top 4 defense. I think it was the third best defense on paper in the NFL last year. The Jets, like the Jets defense was awesome. They couldn't get quarterback play. They still were competitive. Now they get Aaron Rodgers. I think the upgrade, like adding Mike Williams from the Chargers, actually was a low key, really savvy move. Like that's exactly what Aaron Rodgers wants at receiver, as a veteran receiver. He uses spacing and going to be really good. I think Mike Williams is a low key, really underrated player in that, specifically with Aaron Rodgers and the Jets offense, and maybe only. Like I don't know that him going to Washington would have been a home run. It would have been probably more like Adam Thielen. There's a jersey behind you going to play for Carolina. But Adam Thielen with Aaron Rodgers, a veteran receiver who knows him, would have been a great pairing. Like actually, for real, if Adam Thielen ever does leave Carolina, he should go to the Jets and play with Aaron Rodgers. That'd be awesome. My answer is yeah, the Jets will finally be good, but it's still up in the air right now. We're going to find out a lot week 1 than when they play the 49ers. I don't care if they win that game. It's a litmus test to see, like, are they contenders? Because if that game is 24-21 and the Jets lose, I'm still going to walk away going like, yep, they can hang and they're really good. The only thing that can't happen week 1 is the Jets get their asses kicked by the 49ers. What do you make of that? Will the Jets finally be good this year?
I wasn't bought in last year, not because I predicted that anything remotely close to what happened last year would happen, but I thought that the start of their schedule was just really brutal. Bills,
Mm-hmm.
Cowboys, Patriots was their one breath of air, but then they have the Chiefs. People thought the Broncos would be improved, then the Eagles. So I was worried that maybe they might lose the locker room a little bit early if they go through maybe they win only 3 games and it's like we're supposed to be Super Bowl contenders. That's what I thought could happen at the worst case scenario. I'm not going to deny playoffs minimum for this team. They've been building this, and this I also thought last year was too early. I thought this year would actually be the year where they could make real noise in the playoffs. And I think that this is the year. I've never said this probably in my life. Except for maybe 2009, 2010. I think that this is the year that they are going to be a good football team. They have the longest, they haven't made the playoffs since 2010. And I think that they finally have the pieces. That defense should still be really elite. And I'm excited for what the Jets can do this year. I remember a couple of years ago, like you could see what the Jets were building on defense. The defensive numbers, like the points weren't good, but the offense was so terrible. But the defensive stats, like their pressures and stuff like that, was really good. And you can just see the slow ascent for their team. Now you inject it with a Hall of Fame quarterback who's going to be healthy this year. And I think that the Jets will be a good football team this year. I think Jets fans should be excited. I understand if you don't want to be because of last year, but I'm excited for the Jets this year. They don't have a brutal start to the season like last year, and Mike Williams is a great pickup. They got a lot of good pieces. They need to figure out the Hassan Reddick situation. make sure that that's not like a locker room issue. But other than that, yeah, I think the Jets. This is the year to win. Really, I truly think that this is the year to win. Not the Super Bowl, but you know, build. You've been building it. Now let's realize that.
If they don't win, Robert Saleh's probably out, in my opinion. Like, because
Yeah.
it's you can only make so many changes and adjustments for like, look, we've done everything we can with this setup, it's not working. Like, we've changed the quarterback, we changed this, we changed that, we've done everything. Now it's like you're just not winning at some point, right? It's kind of the question, kind of like with Daniel Jones in New York with the Giants. They're like, we've done every iteration of a team we can possibly put around Daniel Jones. We finally got him a number one receiver. Like, if it doesn't work, we got to move on from you. I want to say a couple things first about Robert Saleh. Number one, like, actually, let's back up. Actually, the question actually isn't whether they're going to be good. The question is, where does their season end? It's actually, can they beat Kansas City? Can they beat Cincinnati? Can they actually go to a Super Bowl? Like, because their season probably is going to end either in the conference title game or the week before to like Cincinnati or Kansas City. Really, truly. If they can steal a playoff game or do something like that, then we're having a different conversation. Or I think they're going to go probably 12-5 and win their division. And then can they get a home field advantage? Can they actually have home field advantage over Kansas City, over, Miami, over Cincinnati, these other great teams in the AFC? So the question really to ask is not, I think they're going to be good. It's where does the season end? But then on top of that, as you look ahead, they've got a really old quarterback, right? And I think it's going to work for like a year or two. I think actually the right question now is what's next after Aaron Rodgers? I know that's crazy. We're like looking so far ahead, but I think that way because I try to be like, if I was a general manager, what's my plan? If you're going to have Robert Saleh as head coach, and we've learned he's not capable of developing a young quarterback. Zach Wilson looked better than he ever has in Denver this year, right? With a good head coach, Sean Payton, running, an offensive head coach, basically. Robert Saleh is not the coach you want developing a rookie quarterback. I don't think a Jet should ever draft a rookie quarterback again, as long as Robert Saleh is their head coach. So if you're Robert Saleh, you're reading the tea leaves, like, look, we get Aaron for like 2-3 years. He's going to solve our problem. But what's next? What's next is hopefully another veteran quarterback, a Derek Carr, a Kirk Cousins, whatever. Whenever your time with Aaron is done, you need another veteran quarterback who doesn't need to develop but is ready to go. And I don't know what the market's going to look like 2-3 years from now, but I think you found a repeatable formula if you're Robert Saleh. Keep bringing in a veteran quarterbacks. And maybe what you do is you draft fourth-round quarterbacks every year or third-round quarterbacks or something. And get an under-the-radar guy you can develop. They brought in Jordan Travis from Florida State this year, right? Maybe that's the formula at quarterback. You bring in veteran quarterbacks who can start right away, and hopefully one of these rookie quarterbacks you draft eventually can develop into a guy who becomes your starter. But that's what I would do at quarterback for the next foreseeable future if you're the Jets. Is I like Robert Saleh as head coach. I actually really, really like him. Like, I'd love to play for him. I'd go to war for him. He's awesome. He also can't develop young quarterbacks. He's just seen it too many times. And so I think that's the game plan if you're the Jets with your quarterback situation. Keep bringing in veterans whenever Aaron's done. I think Robert Saleh can win. Now, all of what I just said doesn't matter at all if they are terrible this year. But I think they're going to be good and I think they're going to win. And I'm a big believer in Robert Saleh. Like, he's an awesome dude I'd love to play for. And people like him. And he's smart, dude. He's got a great defense. He's just not a quarterback coach. What's your next question? What do you want to pose about this upcoming football season?
Looking through my list, thinking of what I want to talk about next, and I think this one's kind of a quick one, but how much money is Dak going to earn himself this year? What kind of season is Dak Prescott going to have? Because this just regardless of what people feel about him, he puts up numbers, and if you don't think he wins in the playoffs or whatever, that's a different story. But NFL teams want to win in the regular season. Like, you think about a team like the Raiders or the Saints or the Giants this year, they would all kill to have Dak Prescott on their team. And the Cowboys don't really have any leverage. They can't trade him. They can't franchise tag him. And I mean, the last time we had a franchise quarterback just drop onto the market was Kirk Cousins, and he got a, fully guaranteed 3-year deal. So I don't think Dak is going to get a fully guaranteed deal, but I easily think he's going to be the highest paid quarterback in NFL history, barring some sort of late season ending injury, or maybe he just looks horrible this year. But I think Dak is he has a ton of leverage on the free agency market, and he is going to make himself a lot of money this year because someone will pay him, $60+ million for 4 seasons. Whether, that's going to win them a Super Bowl or not is to be determined. But there are a ton of teams. I shouldn't say a ton. There are teams that will absolutely load up the Brinks trucks for him.
Yeah. And you mean $60 million a year. Like they'll give him a massive, $300 million contract. I mean, dude, the Browns should. Right? Unfortunately, they did that already, and it failed. They said with the wrong quarterback from Texas, ironically, too. He doesn't have a contract, Dak Prescott. There is a lot of consternation there. I think he's really unhappy. He feels really unwanted.
Yeah.
I don't know that do you want to be the Cowboys quarterback next year if you're Dak Prescott? Like, they're not. I think Jerry Jones is showing his inability to build a football team. Like, Ezekiel Elliott and Dalvin Cook are their running backs. What the fuck are you doing? Your offensive line is
6 years ago. Dude, so good.
they got back together with their ex running back. It's so weird. It's like, you let him leave. Why'd you bring him back? It's so weird. And Zach Martin is still the right guard. I love Zach Martin. He was great 5 years ago. The offensive line is like spoiled milk you should have thrown away weeks ago in your fridge. I think this is the year the wheels fall off for the Cowboys. Really, I had them like 6-11 in my prediction. The coach is a problem. The offensive line is that you're in denial about. The running back room is awful. They're not supporting Dak Prescott very well. Like, for real, do you want to be the Cowboys quarterback next year for Dak Prescott? Wouldn't you rather go somewhere like, dude, what if Dak was a Vikings quarterback this year? They would be so happy. He would be awesome. Like, I don't know. I've been really critical of Dak. I think you've heard me be critical of Dak for a long time, but I want to be very clear. I love Dak Prescott as a person. He went through tremendous tragedy in his personal life. He's an awesome dude. He gives a lot to the community. And man, if he was available, the Giants, you're right, would pay him in a heartbeat. The Raiders would take him. I think I really want to see Dak Prescott hit the open market. I would be so happy to see Dak Prescott as the Raiders quarterback next year or the Giants quarterback next year. I don't know that Jerry Jones' ego is going to allow that to happen. Like, I just don't. He's so sentimental. Like, he's got Ezekiel Elliott back on the roster, right? That says everything you need to know. He can't let people go. He just really hangs on to the things, and it's such a weird environment, the Dallas Cowboys. In fact, weird aside, you ever watch the Dallas Cowboys cheerleader show on Netflix?
I had not watched it, but I had thought about it, but I ended up watching stuff, other ones first, like receiver and quarterback. But I remember you talking about it a little bit.
Dude, for real, I know you watch, what's that show, Love is Blind, with your girlfriend? Yeah. What's funny, dude, as much as I talk to you, I talk, like, once every couple weeks, me and your girlfriend, DM each other on Instagram, and she sends me pictures of you and all this hilarious stuff, and
I can't believe
what you guys are watching on Netflix. I love it. Like, dude, I think we're like, it's so fun, like what we built, like the friendship, and how I think someday, like, I'd love to go on a double date, me, Molly, you, and your girl would be so fun. I don't know if I can say it publicly.
I can't believe I looked in the fantasy football chat last night, and it's a picture of me that Zach posted because my girlfriend sent it to you, and I don't even know when this was taken because I was so locked into my phone. Just to quick aside, we had our fantasy football draft last night, and I'm at the Minnesota State Fair, which, if anyone knows, it's like either the first or second largest in the country, depending on how you want to measure how big a state fair is. And I'm like in the international street market. It's super tight. I'm trying to decide who my first round draft pick is going to be. I have 60 seconds to decide. I'm trying to avoid people. I'm trying not to lose sight of my girlfriend because she's walking around shopping. And so all of a sudden I see a picture of myself. She just took it of me. It says like he's locked in on the draft or something. We ended up getting in like a sky ride, and I went in the air. And I'm just on my phone deciding, do I want to take, like, I don't even know who it was at this point. Like, I mean, I'm taking like my tight end 2 or something. So it was a little bit ridiculous, but I don't even know how we got here. But
Couple things briefly. Number one, that title "girlfriend's" got to change at some point, my dude. Like, I don't know what you're doing. You're dragging your feet, man. You got to get on it. She's great. Keep her around.
I'm not even gonna say how many years I've been dating her. It's a little embarrassing.
Well, you're young though. I mean, like, let's be fair. You met early, and you're not out of college though. Now we're getting to the point where it's like, dude, not mean to put. I mean, a gentle, friendly pressure, but dog, like, come on now. Like, I want to be able to. Girlfriend feels like the wrong title. But
I've been meaning to tell you this, but if you beat me to the punch, I will never hear the end of it. I will never hear the end of it.
The clock is ticking, dude. You better get going, man, because I got a plan. I don't know about you. I was gonna say you and her should watch the Dallas Cowboys cheerleader show on Netflix. Even if you watch like 3 episodes and are like, like there's this moment, you'll see this, and you'll know exactly what I mean when I say it. This one girl's boyfriend will shock you. You will like. That's all I'm gonna say. But okay. You'll send me a picture of it, and you'll be like, holy shit, I can't believe my point is, like, when you watch that show, you get a sense of the inner workings of the Cowboys organization and how they've been the same cheerleader coach for like 35 years. Like, they don't seem to fire anyone ever. Like, they just hang.
It's very different over there. Very different. The Cowboys, they run their organization differently than all of the other 31 teams in the league.
They view them, right or wrong. I work for a small business, and truly, like, my company I work at, shout out to Able Heating and Cooling in the Portland, Oregon area. We're like a small family, and I really like am grateful. I love every single person I work with. They're incredible. And the Cowboys think they're a small business the same way. Like, they think they're a small family-run business is kind of how they view it. And you can get away with that when you've got 18 employees and you're Able Heating and Cooling in Portland, Oregon. When you're the Dallas Cowboys, there has to be a different expectation level, in my opinion. Doesn't mean you can't treat people well, but I think there's so much patience there. It's very weird. All that to say, like, I don't think they're going to let Dak Prescott walk out of the building. I'd be shocked if that happened. Plus, also, to go from Dak Prescott to no quarterback is an insane thing to happen. But they got to get it figured out. I guess my point is this, the Cowboys are going to struggle this year, in my opinion. And it's a lot of things that are not Dak Prescott's fault, but he's going to get blamed for it, right? So if they're bad and Mike McCarthy gets fired and you realize, hey, the offensive line was bad and the running back room was a disaster, I still think they're going to punish Dak Prescott for that. I think that's part of why Dak Prescott wants a contract now. He wants to get secured and paid before he plays, risks his body. And if the Patriots are bad, or sorry, if the Cowboys are bad, he's going to have a hard time getting another contract because it's going to reflect poorly on him and show like he can't elevate a lesser roster. He's only one when he's got great players around him. By the way, though, hello, that's everyone except for Tom Brady historically. Like, everyone needs help. Sorry, he needs good receivers and a good offensive line and good coaching, but doesn't everyone need that to win in the NFL? Like, as hard as I am on Dak, I think this year he's being set up to fail. So he should get a contract now and not wait till the year's over because it's going to be crappy. But if for some reason he does hit the open market, I think it'd be so fun to watch Dak go from the Giants or from the Cowboys to the Giants, kind of like Saquon Barkley go from the Giants to the Eagles. I posted a thing on my social media yesterday, it's like a list of like every player associated with an animal, and the animal that is associated with Saquon Barkley is a snake, and it's so funny. Like, and I would find so much joy and pleasure in watching Dak Prescott sign a massive contract with the New York Giants. I would be like, yes. Now he'd get his ass kicked because it's the same situation. They got nothing around him. But yeah, I guess long story short, I think the Cowboys are going to struggle, and if they wait too long, it's going to impact Dak Prescott's contract earnings, at least with the Cowboys. And I hope, although maybe not. Again, maybe he does hit the open market, and that conversation goes like, I didn't have much around me, and if you want me, you and how many other teams want me, so pay me a ton. He's going to get paid a ton of money, no matter who he is, because there's not a lot of Dak Prescotts walking around the world. Even if Dak Prescott isn't Patrick Mahomes, he's still probably like a top 10, 12 quarterback in the planet, and he's going to get paid respectively.
It's kind of shocking what the Cowboys have this year. Mike McCarthy, I believe, also doesn't have a contract after this year. Dak doesn't have a contract after this year. And then Brandon Cooks, Zach Martin, and DeMarcus Lawrence are all making a lot of money, and their contracts also expire after this year. So it's like, you're going to have like $100 million in cap space. What do you, if you don't re-sign any of those guys, you can't, as much as that sounds nice, you're going to have a ton of holes on your roster, not only on the field, but in the locker room. So it'll be really, I'm very interested to see what the Cowboys look like 12 months from now?
If I were the Cowboys, I would sign Dak because you need a quarterback, and then I would redo everything else.
It's
And
hard because does Dak want to resign?
I don't know. Here's the thing about that though. Like, you got a good life in Texas. You're going to make a ton of money as a quarterback and sponsors. Um, I I don't know if they're going to be Super Bowl contenders again in Dak Prescott's time there, but it's a great place to live as far as like, if you're making $100 million, dude, would you rather do that in New York or Texas where there's no state income tax? I'll tell you where
Yeah.
I'd rather be. It's Texas. Um, I think what we're going to see, Dak wants the money. If they offer him a contract tomorrow, he's going to sign it in Dallas. If they wait till after the year, if I were Dak, I'd say I want to explore my options, man. I want to go look around at my possibilities here. Um, I don't know, but I don't see a world where Dak is allowed to leave. But I already go into the year. They need a new coach. They need a new offensive line. I don't think Dexter Lawrence is awesome. Is he worth the money? I don't know. I don't know if Osaru Odigizua contract is available, but at some point their defensive tackle is going to want to get paid. I went to high school with him. He's awesome, and he's probably going to have to leave Dallas to get a massive contract. The same way other people I know in the NFL. I don't want to drop names here, but like people I know in the NFL, like had to leave the team they were drafted to go get a big second contract. I think that could happen with their defensive tackle. Like, there's a lot of these conversations happening in football, and the money situation and the leadership decisions in Dallas are really interesting to me. And I just think I feel bad for Mike McCarthy actually, in that like he failed to win previously, which is a huge problem. Like, losing to I think he got fired emotionally the minute he lost to the Packers in the wild card round last year. You can't recover from that with the team they had last year.
Oh, yeah.
And I would feel really awful. Like, if you're trying to earn a new contract as a coach with what they have on the roster this year, the overpaid players, the threadbare running back room, the offensive line they have, like, that's a tough ask. Like, if I were a coach up on a contract, I'd want what the Vikings have, offensively, not what the Cowboys have. It's just tough. And I don't think he's going to get rehired. He might be coaching high school football next year. I don't know, man. It's ugly, or retired. But I guess long story short, to answer your question, like Dak, his contract situation is one I don't have an answer for. It's really interesting to me, but it's definitely a question worth asking.
Yeah, it's more of a question for the season rather than, for you and me, because it's like, what is going to happen here? Like, is he going to have an MVP type season and get paid like $65 million by a team that's out of their mind because they have a lot of cap space and no quarterback? I'm really interested to see what happens there.
No, it's one of the best questions we've probably asked on the show, because there is no clear answer, and that's what it's a science experiment, truly. Like, let's see what happens. Hypothesis, response, in January, basically. I got a question that I don't know the answer to. When will, and also when should, which are two different questions. When should Drake Maye play as his Patriots starting quarterback? I really like that he's not the starting quarterback week one. I think he's better than Jacoby Brissett, their starting quarterback. It's an awkward situation, acknowledging like, hey, our backup quarterback's better. I think even Gerard Mayo, the coach, kind of said that. He's like, yeah, we really appreciate what Drake Maye's doing. And he said everything, but he might have even almost said, I think he's acknowledged as close as he can publicly, like, we're protecting this young kid from a bad offensive line, and we're going to let Jacoby Brissett just be a punching bag for this season. I really wonder. I think Drake Maye really is. He's actually surprised and impressed me. He's a lot farther ahead than I thought he would be. Coming out of college, he was really had a lot of flaws, and I think with good coaching and all things going on, and also just doing football all the time, not worrying about college and all the other BS. Like, he's really progressed quickly, and I think he's going to be ready to go. I think it's wise he's not starting week one. I can't imagine we go 17 games without Jacoby Brissett getting benched at some point or getting hurt or something. And so Drake Maye's going to play at some point this year. I don't know when, and I also don't know when he should. Like, should you protect him? Like, he's going to get killed behind that offensive line. I don't know. What do you make of that situation, the rookie quarterback situation with a really talented kid in New England?
Do you know the game Categories? Yeah, we would both have to cross that off because I also had written, how long can Jacoby Brissett stave off Drake Maye? I think, and really, that's not entirely accurate because I don't think it's Jacoby Brissett's play necessarily. But yeah, I am curious at what week we will see Drake Maye play this year, because I think that he showed that he is ready to start. But I think when Gerard Mayo saw a KJ Henry come unblocked and just completely blow up Jacoby Brissett and injure him, I think that was the nail in the coffin as far as like, yeah, we are not putting our young quarterback, throwing him right in the fire when we as a team are not prepared to support him. I think the longer that if Jacoby Brissett is serviceable and stays healthy, I think that that's better for the Patriots' future. But I do think that Drake Maye I know that there was a lot coming out of camp before preseason started that was like, oh, he looks terrible. Like, I think Drake Maye had the worst reports coming out of any of the 6 first-round quarterbacks, and then he ended up looking great in the preseason and the better quarterback on the team. So I am curious as to how late in the season he starts. It's so hard to guess on that because I think it really just factors on, can Jacoby Brissett survive a full season? But I'm really excited to see Drake Maye play. I really wanted him on the Vikings. Didn't end up working out. I remember talking to some Patriots fans in our Discord, like, hey, if the Vikings GM, offered you this, the Patriots GM, would you take it for the number 3 overall pick? But no. I hope that we don't see Drake Maye play as much as I think that would be really exciting and interesting. But I think that probably means that Jacoby Brissett got injured, and I think it'll be better for Drake Maye if he can just focus on prepping for the future, getting his feet wet in the NFL as an ecosystem and, just in the training room, working with coaches, working with, outside of college. I think that would do him a lot better. So, I think that's a good question, and we both asked it, basically.
You can learn a lot by not playing, by watching Jacoby Brissett, by evaluating every decision made. If you're any good, like you're taking mental reps all season long. Why is Jacoby Brissett doing what he's doing? Was that the right move? Like, being in quarterback rooms all year. It'd be so good for Drake Maye. I've got a lot to say here, actually. First of all, I think the Patriots did Drake Maye a huge disservice when they drafted Joe Milton. I think they created a controversy for no reason. Drake Maye is their franchise quarterback. I actually like Joe Milton. Is like, dude, I'm dead serious. Like, I've never enjoyed just watching a kid throw the football in shorts more than Joe Milton. Like, the guy who when I was a kid, I would watch quarterback videos of random quarterbacks in Texas who are high schoolers, like throwing in like indoor practice facilities. I just love watching throwing motions. I think it's beautiful. Dude, Joe Milton it's like, listen to the pound on the table, like, oh, what was that down there under the desk? Like, I love watching Joe Milton throw the football. It's amazing. He's incredible. I think he's got potential. I think it's kind of like when they drafted Jimmy Garoppolo. It's a guy, or even frankly when the Patriots drafted Jacoby Brissett, right? He was a guy who had potential, and they ended up moving him somewhere else and getting some money for him in return or whatever. Like, I think they drafted Joe Milton because he has potential and could be a piece they trade away later. Joe Milton should be with the Vikings or the Giants or the Raiders, a team that actually could progress him and get him on the field. All they did was create a controversy and ask, these beat reporters are like, we don't know who's the 6th round pick and who's the 3rd overall pick. Joe Milton looks incredible, blah, blah, blah. Like, they just created a controversy for no reason and made Drake May's life more difficult for real. So that already was a misstep by the Patriots organization. Let's not make another one by throwing their quarterback on the field. No matter what quarterback plays in New England this year, they're not being set up to succeed. Like, you actually have to feel bad for Jacoby Brissett. Jacoby Brissett with the Vikings is actually a compelling, interesting conversation. I think because the receivers they have, the offensive line, the running game, like that dog will hunt. Like, Sam Darnold is being put in a position to do well. Whether he's going to or not, I don't know. Jacoby Brissett is a veteran quarterback who's had way more success than Sam Darnold, and yet is being just put in a terrible, just unacceptable position. No quarterback should ever be thrown to the fire the way they're going to do. They're just literally going to take years off of the life of Jacoby Brissett. If he can't walk when he's 50, it's because of all the hits he took in 2024 as a Patriots quarterback. Like, it's really awful. You can't put Drake Maye in the field. If Jacoby Brissett gets hurt, dude, these quarterback developments are so delicate. And Jordan Love sitting for multiple years behind Aaron Rodgers really helped him. Drake Maye is more ready than I thought. And because he's more ready than I thought, you still can't put him out on the field. It's just bad news for anyone out there. For real, like, if Jacoby Brissett gets hurt, you should sign I don't know. Name any veteran quarterback who's available. Put him out there on the field. Just let him take the hits. Let him get the punches. You're putting a
It
body
sounds
bag out
rude,
there.
but it's the reality.
Yeah, you can't mess around with your first round quarterback because do you remember the conversation me and Nathan had about Mac Jones recently? Like they already did that where they treated a first round quarterback really inappropriately and did a terrible disservice to him. Don't make that same mistake a second time. I'm dead serious. Drake Maye should not play football for the Patriots at all this year. He's going to. I don't know when, but he's not going to be put in a position to succeed. And if he does play and gets hurt, it's a tragedy. If he plays and his confidence gets shattered and he never trusts an offensive line again, that's terrible management. The product on the offensive side of the football, the Patriots, no weapons, no offensive line. It's terrible, and you just can't put a quarterback in that position that early in their career. You're going to ruin the young kid. And I feel really strongly about this. Drake Maye should not play this year, and it's not his fault. It's nothing to do with him at all. It's just what they have around him. You're just setting him up to fail, and they already did that with Mac Jones, and look what happened to Mac Jones. Don't do that again.
Yeah, you can't. There's some things that you just can't unteach, and I think part of that is like if you put the fear of having a terrible offensive line in a really young quarterback, who Drake Maye is one of the more raw prospects coming out this year. Like if you teach him like, oh, I can't trust what I'm seeing, I can't trust my protection, then I mean it's like chopping off your own leg at the start of a marathon. We have his entire career ahead of him. We don't need to just do this immediately. This year for the Patriots is not about making the playoffs. It's not about winning the Super Bowl. You need to build a structure around Drake Maye and build up Drake Maye.
I want to tell you something, and it's a weird HVAC analogy, but in HVAC you do something called brazing metal, where you got two copper lines, you put them together, and you connect them like it's kind of like a weld, but it's using silver phosphate, and you melt the silver phosphate to make a seal for the two copper pipes, basically. The first time I ever did that, something was wrong with my torch, and it like blew up in my face, and it was like. I had like hot metal all over my face and it was awful. Like I was fine. I was wearing glasses, but it was terrifying. I was like, holy shit. And so for like 3 months after that, I was scared to use the brazing torch. You know, I braze metal all the time. It's fine. I'm years in now. I do it all the time. It's not a big deal. But for 3 months, I was like, had like PTSD about using this fucking tool that, by the way, it was like a fluke. That's never happened ever again and never will happen. I know what I'm doing now. I was using it improperly and all these conditions led to that happening. But it really freaked me out. And for like a long time, I'm burning hot gas. There's this hot torch in front of me. I was really scared to do the process for my first 3 months doing HVAC after that happened. Don't do that to your young quarterback. Don't give your quarterback a fear of something that shouldn't be something you're afraid of at all. Like don't do that. Put your guy in position to succeed. We're on the same page here. Like you can't put Drake Maye out there. It's just bad news. What's your next question, man?
My next question, you kind of touched on it a little bit, but I guess it's not really a question, but it's just more of a person, and that is Sam Darnold. I think it'll be fascinating. I obviously, as a Vikings fan, I'm a little more interested maybe than the average person, but I think that he has a lot of really good pieces around him. I actually don't think he's going to play winning football. But I'm curious. I mean, I genuinely think he could be like top 5 in passing yards, but the Vikings could win like 6 games. Like, I and that sounds crazy, but you look at like top 5 passing yards, and it's a lot of names sometimes that you just wouldn't expect, and you can kind of just sneak in there if you just throw for 300 yards a game, and that's kind of what Sam Darnold has done. He threw for I think 297 in the one start he had last year, and he was throwing for 300 yards a game when he played for the Panthers, and he's never been starting for a functional organization. So I don't think that Sam Darnold will play winning football, but I think he is going to surprise people statistically this year. I'm not sure what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah. Well, I predicted the Vikings have a terrible year. I went back and forth on this so hard. You really just got to pick. You think Sam Darnold's going to hit or not? And let's be very clear. This is the best situation Sam Darnold has ever been in by a mile. The same way we talked about quarterbacks getting treated really badly and given, nothing around them and being set up to fail. So that happened with Sam Darnold and the Jets organization. He learned a lot about habits. It was really bad for him. He went to the Panthers. That didn't work. I want to say, I would have such an easier time putting confidence in Sam Darnold if he'd played a game or two truly with the 49ers last year. If Brock Purdy had gotten hurt like week 6 and missed 3 games, and we saw 3 games of Sam Darnold playing in the 49ers offense, playing really well, I would have such an easier time evaluating him. But I don't, we didn't really, I was kind of disappointed actually. We never got to see that experiment work out. So I've gone back and forth. Sam is really talented. I actually was around Sam in high school. Like we went to a lot of camps together. He's a great dude. He's incredible. He's so talented, man. And I want to leave the possibility out there. Like I don't have confidence in Sam Darnold, but it's just because it's hard to put faith in something you haven't seen before. It's really hard for me without evidence to point to, or, oh, this moment here, this one time, like I can't ever, there's nothing to point to that would suggest Sam Darnold is going to do well other than he's got a great coach, a really good organization around him. I think a defense with Brian Flores coaching that's better than people realize. Like he's got great receivers. I mean, truly, like it's so much more it's far and away the best position he's ever been in. He's being set up to succeed, truly. The question is, can he do the job? I don't know. The clips I've seen from training camp, the interceptions weren't encouraging. There were moments I'm like, and there were times where JJ McCarthy looked better than him in training camp. So to me, like my answer is I don't believe in Sam Darnold, but it's not personal, and I feel really guilty saying that, and I want him to do well. I just haven't seen anything in the past that would suggest he's going to do well. But I want to also say, certainly there's a possibility he's actually really good, and I've got the open mind enough to say, like, if he's good, they're actually a playoff team, like for real. Like it's just such a roll of the dice. Like you got to pick whether you're in or out on Sam Darnold. I've chosen the side that I'm out, but it's because I can't point to anything in the past that would suggest that. He's really talented, got great coaching, great receivers around him. There's a possibility here. And like the alternate universes, you look, one of them has Sam Darnold like as MVP, like for real. Like that's a possibility.
It's kind of shocking if you look back at like what he had to work with. Like his best year with the Jets was 2019, and his top receiver was Jamison Crowder. I mean, Jordan Addison is the Vikings' second receiver, and no offense to Jamison Crowder. He's had a very respectable career, but I think Jordan Addison is a better receiver than Jamison Crowder.
By a mile.
So, and that's not even including Justin Jefferson, who's arguably the best receiver in the NFL. So, and TJ Hawkinson's a very good tight end. I don't know when he's going to see this field this year, but I think it'll be really interesting what Sam Darnold does with the pieces around him. And he could be terrible. I have zero expectations for this season as far as wins and losses, but I could see him. I actually believe that he will surprise people statistically and be like, what the heck? Sam Darnold was, threw for 4,000 yards and 28 touchdowns or something. But that doesn't get into a bunch of interceptions or whatever.
There's a weird possibility here. I actually think JJ McCarthy's injury was good for Sam's confidence. Like there's no looming threat behind you. If you have a bad start, like you're fine. Like I'm sorry. In the first 6 games, they're not benching Sam Darnold for Nick Mullins or Brett Rippon. They're not doing it. If he's bad, it's going to take week 13 before they bench him. It's very likely, I think, Sam Darnold plays the entire year for the Vikings, which gives him like a really fair shot. And there's no threat of getting benched, I guess I'm trying to say. That threat of losing your job is psychologically really difficult and really changes things. But without JJ McCarthy behind him, I think he can just kind of ball and be relaxed. And there's, knowing the little I know about Sam, the little I've been around him, like he's very, how do I say this? Like easygoing. Like he's not a guy who I think the Jets took years off his life, but I see a world where Sam, the guy I was around years ago in high school, like where he just doesn't care in a peaceful way. Like I got nothing to lose. My career didn't go the way I wanted, and screw it. Like let's have fun. Let's ball. Let's do the best we can. And I want to see Sam let loose, play kind of like a gunslinger, play carefree, smile, enjoy the game maybe, which we never really saw in a Jets uniform at all. I want to see Sam Darnold have fun and play easy and free and relaxed. That's the best version of Sam Darnold, and a version of Sam Darnold that certainly could play really, really well. I want to make that, especially before the year starts. It's September 1st. let's lay out the possibility that it could actually go very, very well. And I hope that happens. I'm not betting on that. In fact, my prediction reflects that I didn't predict that, but it's definitely possible. And I would be so happy. Like, you don't even know, dude, how excited I would be to see Sam Darnold like lead the league in passing and smile. Like, literally, that kid smiling. That we're the same age. That kid's a weird phrase, but seeing him smile and enjoy football and win would be such justice done in the NFL. Because what happened to him in New York was so, the word is inappropriate. Like how he was treated, the roster they put around him, the coaches they gave him. He was never set up
Adam
to succeed
Gase.
at all, dude. It was awful. And so it would be the football gods doing justice to Sam Darnold to see him play well and have him have a good moment in the spotlight. But again, I want to see him relaxed, carefree, smiling, and enjoying football. And if that's happening, good things are going down in Minnesota with Sam Darnold.
True house money.
Yeah. How about Bo Nix? Bo Nix is a big question mark to me. He's a week one starter. And while we're on this topic, by the way, did you see the responses from the backup quarterbacks that kind of went around publicly? Jarrett Stidham saying, "I'm a starting quarterback in this league," and I'm not going to lie to you, man. I've been in really competitive quarterback battles where it was neck and neck, and I've been the guy not chosen more often than not because look at me, dude. I'm 5'11". I'm small. I was never a great athlete. Like I never won those quarterback battles because usually the guy with more upside was picked over me, and it hurts a lot to be so close, like literally neck and neck, and it's a play or two when someone picks the guy with more potential than you. I think Jarrett Stidham was really upset by that moment. I actually agree with Jarrett Stidham. I think he could be a serviceable starting quarterback. You go to the Raiders, you put Jarrett Stidham with the Vikings. I think Jarrett Stidham did a lot of good stuff. I think he ran that system really well. I think it hurt him that he wasn't named the starting quarterback and didn't get the shot. And if Bo Nix goes down, he'll be ready. Zach Wilson was really gracious and mature. And people actually pointed at Jarrett Stidham saying he's not mature. I don't think it's any problem being confident saying like, yeah, I can go to another team and be a starting quarterback. I actually appreciate that from Jarrett Stidham. Long story short is to say that there was a lot of controversy there. I think Bo Nix is going to be really interesting. I actually don't think he's got like one of the best arms in football. He's kind of going to have to win with timing and accuracy and making good decisions. And he can extend plays, which I really like. He's probably their best athlete at the quarterback position. Him or Zach Wilson is a fun conversation there. I don't know what to expect from Bo Nix, to be totally honest. Like I think he's going to run the offense well. He's going to be on the same page with Sean Payton. I think he is probably an upgrade over Russell Wilson, just given his playing style and his ability to get the ball out really quickly and do what Sean Payton wants and say yes, sir, a lot. But I honestly don't have a good answer. I don't know what's going to happen with Bo Nix, and I'm fascinated. The rookie quarterback starting week one in Denver. Do you have anything to add? I just don't. It's definitely a question mark that I don't know where to land on.
I don't know how. I know Sean Payton likes to talk a lot about, Bo Nix was I don't know if he actually said this, but it's just kind of Sean Payton's motto is he's like, we'd take him, first overall, this is the best quarterback in the draft. And that's fine. I actually like that he's kind of instilling confidence of like, Bo Nix, you are our guy, like for the future, you're the future of this franchise. But I kind of disagreed with the Broncos taking a quarterback this year. I think they were kind of dismantling a roster that didn't work with Russell Wilson. And I just don't know if the Broncos, I think it would have been better long term. I don't know if Sean Payton could have survived this, but if the Broncos were kind of terrible this year and they had a really good draft pick, and then maybe they could have gotten a guy like Cam Ward and had more cap space, you sign better players around, the quarterback that you could have taken. I am really interested to see what Sean Payton does with Bo Nix. People call him the quarterback whisperer. And well, not the quarterback whisperer, but he's had a good track record, at least a really good track record with one quarterback specifically. But yeah, I don't know if the Broncos have enough around Bo Nix. I don't think it's definitely not as bad as the Patriots as far as I'm worried about Bo Nix learning to fear the field. But I disagree with the timing, and I'm happy to be proven wrong. He looked good in the preseason, so yeah, I don't have any predictions for his season, but I'm interested to see how it goes for sure.
I think, well, first of all, there wasn't time to wait for Sean Payton. He had to win now. And I think he learned a lot from Russell Wilson. We're at the point of Sean Payton's career. Sean Payton, Denver Broncos head coach, won a Super Bowl with the Saints, coached there for a long time, turned Drew Brees into a Hall of Famer, like honestly. But we're at the point of the conversation where we're saying, did Drew Brees make Sean Payton a good coach, or did Sean Payton make Drew Brees a good quarterback? Like, we're really like, which one was it? And I think it's both of them, honestly. I think what Sean Payton really learned from coaching Russell Wilson is like, hey, I got to find a guy who fits me and my personality. I got to find a guy who's going to fall in line, who's going to listen to me, who's going to trust me. It's really hard to work with a quarterback when the quarterback coach relationship isn't very good, and there's trust and there's pushback and there's not a lot of like you. I think Sean Payton really wants a quarterback who says, yes, sir, and trusts him implicitly and does whatever he wants. And I think Russell Wilson was a little too big for that. I think there was opinions being had by Russell Wilson, and he wanted a lot of accommodation, and he wanted input in the offense. And Sean Payton's like, I don't want your input. I want you to do what I say. Like, I really think that happened a lot in Denver last year, and it was very personally frustrating for Sean Payton. So with that perspective in mind, I think Bo Nix might be exactly what Sean Payton needs at quarterback. Even more than like a Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams is more talented than Bo Nix, but Bo Nix, I think, is just going to be like, yeah, I'll do what you say. I trust you. There's no ego here. Like, I'm going to fall in line, do what you say. And he's talented enough that if he follows his coaching, and if Sean Payton's right, like, you've done other jobs, like when you're training for a job, and let's be very clear also, by the way, it's weird, but playing quarterback's just a job. It's a very high level paid, very attention job, whatever. But like, you're still relying on your training. You're relying on the people above you, putting you in a good position to do well. When I was coming up in HVAC install, I was lucky to get really good training that taught me a lot of good habits and what I'm doing. And I relied on people above me to teach me what I was supposed to do. And by just trusting the people above me implicitly, I became really good at doing HVAC installs. It's the same for playing quarterback. I think Bo Nix just has to trust Sean Payton, and he's going to do exactly that and just listen to his coaching. And I think it's a good fit personality-wise, as long as short, I'm trying to say. I don't know how it's going to go. I mean, there's a possibility it's a disaster and Sean Payton gets fired and they're terrible, I guess. But I think what's more likely is they're going to be all right. They're going to win 8 or 9 games and be competitive, and Sean Payton and Bo Nix are going to work well together. And they're going to learn lessons together. And the good news is every time Bo Nix has a problem, he's got a veteran coach who's got the answer to how to deal with that. When Mac Jones was the quarterback of the Patriots, working with Matt Patricia and Joe Judge as his co-offensive coordinators, when something would go wrong, and I know this for a fact because we heard Mac Jones, quarterback coach, talk about it on a podcast, like he said, he didn't have anyone who was able to help him, give him the answers when there was a problem. Good news is Bo Nix has someone who can give him the answers. And so I think it's going to go really well. It's just going to come down to how coachable is Bo Nix. And I think he's actually highly, highly coachable and talented enough to make it work in Denver with okay players around him. So I actually have kind of high confidence, but I'm fairly like 7 out of 10 confident that it's going to go well in Denver with Bo Nix eventually. I don't know how quickly it's going to take. I don't know if he doesn't start playing well till week 6 or something, but I expect him to succeed in Denver with Sean Payton because of the fit, because of the personality, because of the coachability we're going to see with their young quarterback in Denver.
Yeah, and also to be clear, I don't know if Sean Payton could have survived like a 4-15 season, not 4-15, 4-13 season. But I think as far as like the franchise trajectory, I think that could have been better. But I didn't really hear that opinion from anyone else. So I'm excited to see what Bo Nix does this year. And he does fall in line, I think, really well with as far as what Sean Payton's looking for. I think Russell Wilson is just rightfully so too accomplished and too kind of has too much prestige in the league to just say yes sir to everything and not kind of have his own opinion.
I disagree though, because that's what made Russell Wilson good. Like when Russell Wilson was the 3rd round pick out of Wisconsin that's to true. Seattle, like he was a starter immediately. He was named a captain very quickly at Wisconsin. He was known for being coachable, for listening. And I think as Russell Wilson's career went on, ego got more and more involved. He got more and more opinionated. And the more it was about him and the less about us and the team and all this stuff. I mean, he says the right stuff in interviews. He says the right thing every time, like almost like a lizard does. It's kind of weird and like robotic. But I think truly, like, I don't think he was what was needed from a coachability standpoint. Yeah, man, I think Russ, Well, let's actually talk about that. And before we get into Russell Wilson, because that's my next question, ironically, but it kind of flows perfectly. I do want to halt the conversation and say it's very clear to me in the NFL, the way you treat your rookie quarterback, the support you give them, for all my time covering it, Sam Darnold, Daniel Jones, Mac Jones, Drake Maye, the quarterbacks that succeed and the ones that don't are the ones that get support versus the ones that don't. Why was Brock Purdy great? Well, part of why Brock Purdy was great is he worked really hard, but also he had a lot of support around him. Great coaching, great players. Hey, I don't know if this makes any sense. I'm sure it's very obvious to most people. You would think it would be, but for some reason the NFL hasn't figured it out. Hey, people succeed when you give them a good, stable environment, a good place to work, help from the people above them, good coaching. Oh, and good teammates around you. It's not that complicated, actually. You give someone good teammates, a good offensive line, and good coaching, they're way, 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 way more likely to do well. It's kind of bizarre how that happens. Kind of like almost, quarterbacks need good people around them. So it's just weird to me. The NFL hasn't figured it out. I really worry about Cameron Ward. I'm a big Cameron Ward believer, but I worry if Cameron Ward goes to the Giants next year, for example, and is like the number one pick, they're not going to support him. And it's going to be the same thing they saw with Daniel Jones, the same thing we saw with Mac Jones, the same last name, ironically, not related at all. But I'm so frustrated with NFL teams not supporting their young quarterbacks and putting them in a position to succeed and expecting, like, you're throwing duct tape on a broken thing. It's like, no, you got to replace the part. You can't just put duct tape. The quarterback's not duct tape. A quarterback's not a solve all, like, which I hope the Patriots can realize. Drake Maye being talented is a great asset to your franchise, but he's not going to fix your abysmal offensive line, right? You got to help your young quarterbacks in the NFL, and it's taking. We still haven't seemed to figure it out yet. I don't know how it's. I've been watching the NFL my whole life, and I'm like, I already know at 27 years old, hey, you got to support young quarterbacks, and why aren't like 50-year-old general managers doing that? I'll never know. I'll never understand. Here's my next question: are the Pittsburgh Steelers going to fall apart? Is this the year they fall off the wagon and it just comes unglued?
It's kind of weird, the run that they've been having, just like head barely above water. I mean, it's kind of shocking. It's kind of shocking. Like, I know that it happened, but it's so weird to think about. Like, they made the playoffs in like Big Ben's last year and just got obliterated by the Chiefs. Like, they were a complete blip in the playoffs despite, the talent on defense. And there are a couple teams in the NFL that it's like, do the wheels stay on? Or do they completely fall apart? I know we've talked about like the Cowboys earlier. I don't know how sustainable this is for the Steelers, because every team, no matter what team it is, I don't care if you're the current Chiefs or the Patriots of old, every team has to come down eventually. It doesn't matter how high you are. A team isn't going to be, 9-8 or 9-7 previously forever. That's just not how the NFL works. And maybe Russell Wilson and or Justin Fields will be the injection that they need to survive. I don't know, 2 more seasons, 3 more seasons, but I don't know if the wheels fall off the Steelers this year. I think they're just slightly too good to be horrible, but in 5 years, I think that the roster is going to be completely different. I mean, you have a lot of veterans on that team that are aging out, as we speak. Like Cam Hayward is a huge guy for their locker room, but he's not going to be in that locker room for much longer.
I probably should take the segment Nathan and I did about the Steelers, because we talked about the Steelers and then we talked about Mike Tomlin specifically. We had like a whole different conversation about what do you do with Mike Tomlin, because he can't develop quarterbacks and he's not an offensive head coach, and that's kind of looking like what they need. Ever since Big Ben left, quarterbacks are a problem they can't solve, and I think the offense is going to be a disaster this year. Arthur Smith is not a coach I respect very much. Respect is the wrong word there, but like, I don't think he doesn't work well with quarterbacks. First of all, he's got Russell Wilson, who looked terrible in the preseason. He's got Justin Fields, who also looked terrible in the preseason. It's going to be really weird. And they're wasting a lot of really talented players on defense. Like TJ Watt's prime of his career is being wasted on a team without a quarterback. That's such a shame. It's so sad. Like, he's putting his body on the line every single week and just getting no reward for it and getting no support from it's like, having like the best pitcher in baseball, but no run support. It's like, well, like, come on, dude. Like, you got to get someone who can hit the ball on this baseball team. It's the same thing with, you need a quarterback, you need an offense. And unfortunately, Mike Tomlin doesn't do that. That's not what he brings to the table. And I know he's a legend there. I also, privately, I love the city of Pittsburgh, and I don't want to get beat up in Pittsburgh. Like, I don't want to talk badly about Pittsburgh and get my ass kicked, but it's like, dude, the quarterback coach situation in Pittsburgh is a massive, massive problem that Mike Tomlin cannot figure out how to solve, and he can't hire a good offensive coordinator. We've seen it. Matt Canada was terrible. I think Arthur Smith is probably going to be terrible again. And I don't know. You got to handle Mike Tomlin really weirdly, because I on one hand, I love him. Like, I admire him. I've watched so many videos of him talking about coaching, and his philosophy on coaching is great. And he's a man I would love to work for and admire. And if he ever wants an offensive coordinator, I'm probably not equipped for the job, but he could hire me in a heartbeat. I'd work for him. For real, I'd love that. I love him a lot. But he's got to get an offensive coordinator, dude, and he's got to get a quarterback. And these two problems, like, those three people are going to single-handedly ruin their season. Arthur Smith, Russell Wilson, and Justin Fields. Those three men by themselves end their season because they just don't have an effective quarterback in that building, or a coach who can help them, truly. And so it's not a question for me as much as a prediction. Like, I think the Steelers are headed towards their first losing season in Mike Tomlin era. And it's time now to ask really difficult, really uncomfortable questions about the future of Mike Tomlin and the future of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Do you want to win again? Do you want to not be just 9-8 every year, losing to Buffalo? They made a playoff game last year. They lost to Buffalo 31-17 with Mason Rudolph at quarterback. Come on.
It's shocking.
What are we doing? It's so clear the team can win. The defense is there. The quarterback and offensive coordinator are not. And we've seen so many opportunities now for Mike Tomlin to hire an offensive coordinator or bring in a quarterback, and just over and over and over again hasn't worked. And it's just we don't need to linger on it. It's a short topic, but it's just that's the big question in Pittsburgh. Like, is this the year they have a losing season? I think yes, and I think Mike Tomlin, I don't want to say you fire him, because I really do admire him. Like, I respect him. I think he seems like a great man. I've never met him, but like, he just seems like just a compelling, awesome dude. The kind of guy I would want to be a mentor to me. Like, for real, I'm dead serious. But he's not getting it done when it comes to hiring an offensive coordinator or getting a quarterback. And those are, unfortunately, maybe the most important positions in football, and maybe more important than head coach, or comparatively, important. The three most important positions in any NFL team are, or maybe four: GM, head coach, offensive coordinator, and quarterback. Two of those four are just not there in Pittsburgh, and repeatedly are not being delivered in Pittsburgh. So it's a problem.
Yeah, Pittsburgh football right now is kind of like some leftovers that, it was a great dish, but it's not expired, but the flavor is just not there, and you keep adding seasonings. Oh, a little Russell Wilson here. I wanted to add some Brandon Ayuk, but we're all out. I guess I'll substitute it with Van Jefferson. I mean, it's eventually you keep adding seasonings, you keep mixing it in, and it still isn't tasty. Eventually, you're just like, I guess I'm just going to throw this out and, make something fresh, as difficult as that sounds. And I'm not talking about Mike Tomlin specifically, but eventually it's like, like, you can only do so much before you're like, no, it's the base level here is what needs fixing. I can't wrap a bow on this and make it brand new with picking up Arthur Smith and, Justin Fields.
Yeah. Sorry, the soup is a month old. It's edible, but you should throw it away. It's like, you're really trying to rescue and salvage this thing, and I don't know, it can be salvaged. What's your next question?
I'll say my next question is, I feel like I understand why no one's talking about him, but I hear absolutely nothing about Bryce Young. And it's kind of shocking. He's kind of the most forgotten number one overall pick. The 2023 number one overall pick is the most forgotten number one overall pick since the year before with Trayvon Walker. I mean, no one talks about that guy either. So, I mean, it's not like, oh, I'm so excited to see Bryce Young, but like, what is going to happen here? Because he was the number one overall pick. The season was a disaster for the entire organization. Is Bryce Young going to show signs of improvement? Is, he is he broken beyond repair, or is this going to be like Trevor Lawrence's first year where in 5 years it's going to be like, oh, don't even mention his rookie year because the whole, it was such a disorganization for the franchise that, we don't even count that one, because that's how people talk about Trevor Lawrence. Is now, granted, Urban Meyer, that was a whole fiasco that I think the Panthers didn't even touch. But it is true that people are like, oh, don't talk about Trevor Lawrence's rookie year. That doesn't count. So are we going to be saying in 3 years, don't talk about Bryce Young's rookie year because that doesn't count? Or was that unfortunately where things are headed for him and his career? I think the Panthers really need to figure it out just around him, because that's a huge, I mean, they traded up for that pick. And if that doesn't work out, I would say everyone's getting fired, but everyone already was fired. So
I want to say something. We are too cute as a culture. Like I wish people were more honest and comfortable. Like when Tua came out and talked about Brian Flores not wanting him, like I really loved that. And I wish more people did that. There's this belief, well, don't talk bad about him. Don't talk bad about your blah, blah, blah. Like I've even gotten fired from jobs for being a little too honest about the past. Fucking, I think it's so stupid. Like I would love to hear Trevor Lawrence wait till you retire, but do a tell-all interview about that.
Oh, that would be so good.
What's the harm? He's a rich dude. He's off in a mansion somewhere in Florida. Like, why can't you talk honestly about Urban Meyer? Why can't you just acknowledge how awful that was? Like, I don't know why. Literally, as a society, everyone's like, well, don't talk bad about him. It's like, why not? Why can't you just be honest about what actually happened? We're a little too worried about being respectful to people that not only don't deserve it, but it's not even respect, it's being honest. It's like we can't be honest about what actually happened. And there's so many moments like that where like you'll never see players talk about what actually happened for fear of some backlash or bullshit or looking like an asshole or whatever. But it's like, I just don't view it that way. I think you're being honest about what actually happened. And I would kill for that. We'll never hear Bryce Young talk about what actually happened for those reasons specifically. Like, our just culturally, people don't talk about that stuff. We're like, it's so weird. We sweep everything under rug. We don't talk about the bad stuff, the negative parts of our life, and it's weird. What happened to Bryce Young was very similar to what happened with Tua in Miami and Brian Flores. He had a coach who didn't want him. Like, I don't know how much is known about that. I don't know how much is talked about with that, but it was very clear. It was an owner who wanted him and a coaching staff who didn't. They wanted CJ Stroud. They didn't get him. And it's just an impossible situation for a quarterback to be somewhere where like they wanted the other guy and they're begrudgingly dealing with you instead. It's just weird and awful and a terrible position to be in for Bryce Young. I'm with you, man. I don't know what's going to happen. It's very bizarre. And part of why he's not talked about is they're in a small market. They're a bad team in a small media market that no one cares about national. Like, you never hear anything talked about in Seattle. Like, I live in the Northwest, so I'm pretty close to Seahawks fans, but like I'm very, very painfully aware, like the Seahawks are like last on everyone's mind national. Like, no one
far off corner.
Yeah, and it's literally physically, but also like they're just not, even if they were great, no one would talk about them. No one cares about Seattle. It's just not a place to go if you want attention or media. And it's the same with the Carolina Panthers in Charlotte, North Carolina. I don't know what's going to happen with Bryce Young. He looks really small. It's really like I'm not that guy to criticize that. I'm not even criticizing. It's just true that he does look really small. And you're like, oh, he looks like a middle schooler. It's kind of funny. I think he's got talent. They've got an offensive head coach, and I don't know how to predict this. I just hope it goes well, because I think he's a good kid who works really hard. And we talked about this on the predictions episode, me and Nathan, but I wonder what his offseason looked like. If I were him, like if I were Bryce Young, I'm an adult, like knowing what I know now, like I ask for a lot of people's advice all the time now. People that even maybe shouldn't advise me. Like when I was coaching at my former high school, I asked one of the former head coaches for advice, like how to handle the administration. And we know how that went. It went badly. But I did ask him like for his opinion on everything. And I'm like, I don't care that he's like a disgraced person in this organization. Like I think he's got interesting shit to say. And so I ask everyone now, anyone I can get my hands on, I ask people for advice on how to handle situations. If I were Bryce Young, I would have approached every quarterback I could find. Hey, watch film with me. Let's break down film for 2 weeks. Watch every game I played and tell me what you're seeing that I could be doing differently, and make every adjustment you possibly can. I'd call up Drew Brees, another smaller quarterback, get him for advice. I would go train with Tua for 2 weeks. I would go train with Kyler Murray for 2 weeks. I would just be up everyone I could's ass asking for help and advice so I can get better. I hope that's what Bryce Young's offseason looked like. I would not be on a beach in Cabo. I would be grinding. And you notice part of what it's interesting about not hearing from Bryce Young at all is he's been dead quiet. You know, went on a bunch of podcasts and ran his mouth a lot with CJ Stroud. Bryce Young did not do that. I don't know if it's going to happen. I would love to see a Bryce Young who comes out a totally different player this year, who worked his ass off in the offseason and got advice from a lot of people and had a lot of mentorship. I don't know if that's what's going to happen, but that's how I would have handled that situation if I were Bryce Young after last year. It's one of those ones. It's a science experiment. We just don't know what's going to happen, and it's going to be really fun to find out what goes down in Carolina. And really talking about it all year is going to be fun. Did you see blah, blah, blah? Did you see this? Did you see that? It's going to be a joy to talk about the Carolina Panthers, even if no one else will.
And he didn't even play in the preseason, so we didn't even get like that peek behind the curtain or anything. Like what he is going to look like, you know, after his offseason, we genuinely have not seen it on the field until week 1.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's Dave Canales, their head coach, is I like him. Like I just find myself rooting for Carolina. Like those the people there. Look, David Tepper has kind of put his foot in his mouth a bunch of times and really shot
He took the Snyder mantle, I think.
But I remember when he first bought the Panthers, I loved him. Like he wanted to invest money. He like I think maybe a little too much because he's treating the Carolina Panthers like every other business he's run, because he's an investor. He buys businesses, he makes dramatic changes, and they succeed. Like that's happened everywhere. It's not really working that way in Carolina, but part of that's because it's like if you bought an HVAC company, you've never done HVAC. You don't know jack shit about HVAC. Like, sorry, you don't really know how to install. You don't know how the process works. Like, you hire someone who knows what they're doing. We run a small business at my company, and I'm owned by actually a guy who worked his way up from shop boy all the way up to install manager, all the way up to owner of a company. So my owner of my company knows every level of HVAC incredibly well. So I'm really lucky there. My owner is not this situation. But if a random owner bought my company, he should hire someone like my owner now, who's a master of what he's doing and knows everything to make all the decisions. That's what David Tepper has to do. Get yourself out of the decision-making process when it comes to football. But what I want to say is David Tepper and Panthers people hate him now, but I think he cares a lot. Like he wants to win. He's made a lot of missteps. He's made mistakes. I hope his ego can someday acknowledge that. But I think they've got an owner who wants to win and cares. He just keeps doing the wrong things because he's not a football guy, and he needs to hire a smart football guy to do that. I would be hiring people. I would almost if I were David Tepper, you're a bazillionaire. Dude, you should have Bill Belichick on payroll just as an analyst. Let's get Belichick's opinion once a week to see what he has to say about our seriously, or Nick Saban or someone. Like, just get people. I just think mentorship and advice and people giving their thoughts on what you should be doing in Carolina would be really valuable. And I just think for so long, the owner, David Tepper, at least last couple of years, has had his hands a little too involved. And that's the problem there. But I think he cares and his heart's in the right place, which you're not going to hear me say about very many owners. But he's really trying. He's a new owner that's keep making missteps.
He went from like an investor of an HVAC company to an owner of an HVAC company. And that's very different.
Yeah, the owner in the NFL organization, you're bankrolling other people to make decisions. And I mean, you see it across. That's one of the most frustrating parts of the NFL to me. Like, even when you watch the Giants Hard Knocks, you see John Mara, this dude. John Mara is like just such a. He is funny. The team takes on his personality. He's such a not compelling human being. Like, he's the most boring, white bread, like conservative in like a not even. I don't mean like politically, just like in the most boring New York old money way. And the team reflects his personality. And you look around the NFL so much, you see owners with their egos involved in their teams a little too much, kind of fucking shit up. Even Jerry Jones is prime example of that. A good owner in football, actually, like, shout out to what's happening in Seattle. Their ownership group says, we just hire football people. We don't know football. We have the money to spend. We want to win. We'll spend the money. You make the decisions. And it's really hard when you're the guy spending the money to do that. But that's what has to happen in Carolina. And I hope that's what happens with Dave Canales, because I like Dave Canales and his ideas, and I would really like to see a Mike McDaniel Tua level relationship between Bryce Young and Dave Canales. I don't know if that's going to happen, but there's potential for that, and I want that in Carolina. Especially, let me keep going for a second, by the way. When a quarterback gets beat up and doesn't go well year one, they're kind of traumatized. I think like Tua was. And Mike McDaniel came to Miami and really instilled confidence in Tua, built great relationship, great rapport. Like I'll tell you what, Tua would take a bullet for Mike McDaniel. I think he's very aware of how much he owes him. He loves working with him. He's very grateful to work with him. And I'd love to see a similar thing happen with Bryce Young and Dave Canales.
Yeah, their mic'd up moments together are just hilarious. Mike McDaniel talking about, I was watching your high school tape and you looked like garbage. They're laughing on the side. I mean, it's just, it's so funny. So, and, Tua's laughing about that. And yeah, so that, I mean, I really hope that Bryce Young can kind of find that person for him. And I really hope it is Dave Canales, because it is just difficult to see someone go from like the number one overall pick to, if this trend continued, let's say, it just kind of fizzling out in the league. You just don't want to see that. So yeah, I really hope that Bryce Young can get on his feet, find his footing, and have a successful career.
It really bothered me, and I've got to say, first of all, we'll talk about Michigan football later, but it sucks when people take away from the work players do. It really irritates me. I have a problem actually with Brian Daboll. One of the things I learned from the Giants Hard Knocks was how flippant he is when he talks about players, and how like he's like making fun of the 40-yard dashing, like, I could do all right. It's like, no, fat fuck, you couldn't. You would suck ass. Stop eating 20 wings a meal and shut the fuck up and respect your players. It really pissed me off actually how Brian Daboll talked about specifically the 40-yard dash. I was like, dude, you are so flippant like with the players. Like, there's not a level of respect for the effort that guys give. Bryce Young, the level of effort a guy like Bryce Young is giving and putting his body on the line, it has to be treated with respect. You have to talk with respect about Bryce Young. Like him or not, the dude's trying really hard. He's putting a lot of effort in. These are professionals. His work ethic's incredible, and it's a shame to see all of that work ethic and all of that effort put to the side and not see fruit from it. And I just hope when people talk about quarterbacks and players, and even me, I fall in this trap sometimes. You say shitty stuff and you feel bad about it later. But I want to be really respectful with Bryce Young, because it's like the dude's a young kid. Like, he's really young. I forget how old he is, like 22, 23. He was a rookie last year in a bad situation. He's working his ass off, trying really hard. And I hope that works out for him. Because even if it doesn't, I just hope people know, like, it's not like people aren't trying there. It's not like there's not effort in Carolina. It's not like there's it's not Jamarcus Russell, like, not watching tape, or Johnny Manziel with 0 hours on the iPad. Like, this is a kid working his ass off. And if it fails, it's like, man, it's a valiant effort that didn't work, honestly.
Yeah, he's a couple months older than me. I would be shitting my pants if I was leading an NFL franchise. Like, that is so, granted, it's not like I played for Alabama and Nick Saban, but just picturing myself in that is so beyond like what I think I could handle as someone who's been on this earth as long as I have. So yeah, I really hope that he can come back from it.
It takes a tremendous amount of responsibility. I almost wonder, like, I've talked a little bit about it. I got fired as an offensive coordinator for like a month, and because I ran my mouth about a coach, right? And I wonder, like, was I too immature for that moment? Like, I as I reflect on myself, like, I can learn a lot from the moment. I go, if I ever coached high school football again, something I thought I wouldn't like to do, but I loved it, and it's a huge time commitment. If the conditions are ever right, like, maybe I live in Pittsburgh or Minnesota and I'm far away, and there's some random high school nearby that wants me to, like, will let me coach there, and if the conditions are right, I do it again. I would love to, but I would probably not talk about it. I mean, you would probably hear hints of me being like, well, with my players I do this, but I wouldn't acknowledge it. I wouldn't post about it on Instagram. It would be after the season, after there's something I'm proud of, I'd post on Instagram, hey, for the last 2 years, I've been the offensive coordinator at Mountainside High School, and like, whatever the fuck, right? And like, I would say that, like, you wouldn't know, you would hear hints of it, but you wouldn't know for a long time if I was actually coaching somewhere. If I ever do it again, I would just keep it really quiet and private and low key. And I think Bryce Young, being an NFL quarterback, requires so much responsibility. And the thing you have to be impressed with is his maturity level. Like, he does have the maturity for that position that I don't know that I even had the maturity to be a high school offensive coordinator. Like, I try to be honest about that, like, and own my failures. And you have to just admire the kid who is so young and doing such a tough job. I just really think we are so flippant about quarterbacks. And like when you talk about Connor Weigman, the quarterback at Texas A&M, like, does he suck? Yeah, kind of. Is he like, does he have any talent I'm excited about? No. Is he a good decision maker? Also, no. Is he accurate? No. Like, you get on the list and there's nothing impressive about it. But it's like, that's a tough position to be the quarterback at Texas A&M and requires a lot. And just because you can acknowledge the honest reality of someone not performing doesn't mean you can't also respect the effort and the time and commitment it takes to do that, even at a bad level.
What is your next question?
I've only got 2 left, but if you've got a lot more, I'd like to go down your list.
I got 2 more as well.
Which quarterback injury is going to mess up the season? We can't predict that, but maybe it's Jacoby Brissett. But like, it's an inevitable reality of football. Like all my predictions, I do like, dude, this is just for the NFL. I've got another one. It ends up being like basically a phone book worth of predictions and notes and paperwork. And there's 2 more notebooks you can't see out. They're too far away for me to reach about my predictions for this NFL season. Like I do a lot of work. At some point, all of that's going to go out the window because some quarterback's going to get hurt. Like Aaron Rodgers 4 plays into last year. I don't have a lot to say here. We can't predict this at all, but like, let's just acknowledge some quarterback is going to get hurt and it's going to fuck up someone's season. And honestly, I just hope it's not Patrick Mahomes. I really, because I think we're on tap for a truly like special, rare year from Kansas City, where I think it's very likely they three-peat. They are a team that just won a Super Bowl and got better. I think we are like, as a guy, I love football and I love watching quarterbacks play. Like we are with Xavier Worthy, Hollywood Brown, Travis Kelce, like what they have in Kansas City. If Patrick Mahomes stays healthy, we are on tap for like maybe the best season we've ever seen from anyone. And like, it's going to be really special and really fun. I just hope he stays healthy, but it goes for every quarterback across the league. Like one of these teams is going to have, if Jared Goff goes down, the Lions will be okay because Hendon Hooker is actually not a bad backup, but he's certainly no Jared Goff. But if Matthew Stafford goes down, if Aaron Rodgers goes down, so many of these teams, Josh Allen, Tua, like they can't survive a quarterback injury. It's funny, I brought up the Lions, who actually probably one of the better backups in football. It kind of was like the worst one I could have chosen. But my point is like, they're fucked. They are fucked. Your hopes are shot if your quarterback gets hurt. And I just want to acknowledge that that's going to happen to someone this year. We don't know which. I hope it doesn't, by the way. But someone's season is going to get obliterated by a quarterback getting injured, and it's that unpredictable thing that is undoubtedly going to happen to someone.
Yeah, I mean, you just think about last year, the Jets, Bengals, and Vikings were all teams that had much greater ambitions than what they ended up with because they lost their franchise quarterbacks for a majority of the season.
Let's hope. So last year felt historically bad with quarterback injuries, and I just hope it's not like last year. I hope
it's kind of like 2017. 2017, Aaron Rodgers got injured. The Vikings also lost Sam Bradford, kind of. Well, that was more of a Teddy Bridgewater thing as well. But, and then also the Eagles lost Carson Wentz. That kind of felt like a big thing when that happened. And yeah, last year also, it's like, I remember you and I were talking about it actually in December of like, what is going on? Like, is this like a trend? Is this some conditioning problem across the league that's causing this? Or is this like a one-off?
Yeah. I just, especially some of these teams that I think have a shot at a Super Bowl, like Detroit, Miami, Kansas City, Cincinnati's in that conversation, the Jets,
Baltimore.
Yeah, man, the 49ers. Like if Brock Purdy goes down, I love Josh Dobbs, but Brock Purdy's like, Brock Purdy's actually getting to the point where he's actually almost underrated. It's kind of weird, like how I don't like Brock Purdy's not Anthony Richardson talent wise, but he's certainly deserves some respect. I think especially after last year, the questions he answered about himself. I don't know, man. I just hope that I hate to say this, but like, could it be someone like Will Levis or Gardner Minshew or someone who Russell Wilson gets hurt and doesn't ruin a team that's a Super Bowl hopeful team? Like that would be, I don't know. It's a weird, awful conversation to have, but like hopefully, and I don't wish Gardner Minshew to get hurt at all. Let's be very clear. Like I hope it's not one of these teams that, I don't want to see a team that's got a Super Bowl potential have their season fucked up by this. And it's probably going to happen at some point to someone, and it's sad and awful.
Yeah, it's one of those things that's like it will happen. Kind of just close your eyes and throw a dart at the dartboard and see unfortunate, what team is going to be just really have their season tanked. I'm not going to make a prediction because it's really, you can't. I don't feel comfortable making a prediction on that either. That being said, if it does happen to the Jets, that franchise might dissolve. The
Dude,
city might dissolve
the whole
if
city
Aaron
might
Rodgers.
the whole city might go to the Empire State Building and jump. I mean, like it just would be awful.
New York and New Jersey, Newark, New Jersey are both.
This is a
Not
weird,
Newark.
this is a really horrible, weird thing to say, but the one team that I feel like can survive that injury is actually Atlanta with Michael Penix Jr. I mean, that's the weird reality they found themselves in by doing that, is that if Kirk gets hurt, I'm actually really excited to watch Michael Penix Jr. Like that would actually be like really compelling and interesting. The Falcons, man, are going. The Falcons are not the best team in the NFC, but they're probably going to be the number one seed, just given they have got the easiest schedule I have seen in the history of the NFL. It's like crazy with Atlanta. You're like, dude, like this team, they're probably going to lose to like the 49ers, but if they can win a playoff game or two, and they're a Super Bowl team, just given how the lack of resistance along the way, kind of like Miami football, right? Miami football in college and the Atlanta Falcons, the NFL, both have really easy schedules and a lot of talent. And if they don't, succeed at a high level and at the end of the year aren't in a position to win a championship of some kind or a playoff game or a really high level move, like it's a total waste of really good talent and a really easy schedule, because this is the easiest path to a Super Bowl Kirk Cousins is ever going to get in his entire life. Like it's now or never for Kirk, for real. And man, like you got to deliver.
I remember looking at their schedule last year and thinking that it was comically easy, and yeah, it's kind of shocking. I mean, it helps that you're in the NFC South for sure, but yeah, I think Michael Penix, they are in a very weird position as they set themselves up to be. But yeah, I think Atlanta, it would definitely change what their plans are for the year. But yeah, I think that they definitely would recover better than, say, a Kansas City or a Baltimore.
What's your next question?
My next question, I'm really interested to see how Will Levis does for the Tennessee Titans this year. I think, they got a lot of not amazing receivers, but it's kind of weird just the amount of good to decent players they have in that wide receiver room. I mean, they have Calvin Ridley, Traylon Burks, DeAndre Hopkins, Tyler Boyd. I mean, those are all players that have been in this league. They're capable. I think that's a good receiver core for a young quarterback, especially one that's kind of as raw as Will Levis is. I mean, he's got a big arm for sure. I mean, people are comparing him because he, kind of redshirted last year. He played a lot last year, but the Titans just they didn't have any talent on that team, just to be quite honest. I'm interested to see what Will Levis does with kind of some receivers around him. I think he's a really physically gifted quarterback. I'm not predicting that the Titans win a lot of games, but just to put it out there, I drafted him in fantasy. I think he's going to put up yards, and whether that equates to winning, I actually don't think that the Titans are ready to compete. But the Titans got a lot better this year than they were last year. Last year, it felt like a roster completely devoid of talent. I felt like I could barely name anyone on their team. If you asked me to name 5 or 10 players, I don't think I definitely wouldn't make it to 10. And that's just, if you ask me on the spot. But I think that the Titans got a lot better. They got Trent McDuffie. They're just getting a lot more capable people in that locker room. And I'm excited to see what Will Levis does with more talent around him.
Here's the one thing. So we've kind of reshuffled everything with Daniel Jones over the years, right? In New York, and said like, well, there's this, there's that, there's all these excuses. And we've tried every configuration of what the Giants could look like without truly a number one receiver. The Giants now have that. If it doesn't work with Malik Neighbors, Steven gave him a number one receiver and Daniel Jones couldn't work. We have to acknowledge like Will Levis is being put in a really good position to succeed. Not like amazing, but certainly like better than a lot of other young quarterbacks. And offensive head coach, not the best receiver room in the world, but certainly like capable receivers, Calvin Ridley, DeAndre Hopkins, Tyler Boyd, Traylon Burks, like people that can play to some level. And no one can say, if it doesn't go well in January with Will Levis, no one can say, well, they just didn't support him. It's like, well, no, they did. They actually did try like fairly well, like fairly, like they did about as best as they could with what the situation they were in to support their young quarterback. And like, if he doesn't work, it's on him. Like, there's going to be no excuses, in my personal opinion. I just hope Will Levis doesn't get hurt, because then it really fucks up your ability to like analyze what happened there. But Nathan like really doesn't believe in the Titans. I'm open-minded. Like I think they're probably the worst team in that division. A really talented, actually very interesting AFC South with Jacksonville and the Colts, which I think are going to be better than people realize, and Houston, who's like kind of a Super Bowl contender if CJ Stroud stays healthy. I wonder if Will Levis and the Titans can be not at the bottom of that division. Like I really think they're one of the more interesting teams in football. Like they've got a small market. No one cares about them nationally, but to me, I'm like, I think there's a shot here for this to progress into something good, over time. Like, I just wonder, Brian Callahan, the new coach, Will Levis, like, do they get more than just this year? Like if they make progress and do okay this year, can they build off this year and do better next year and then the year after that? But remember, Brian Callahan won games with a backup quarterback in Cincinnati last year. I'm blanking on his name right now. The kid from Washington, backup quarterback named.
I should know. He beat my team.
Oh gosh, I picked the wrong team. I was going to drop the name, but I forgot. The kid from Washington, Jake Browning. Thank you, Jesus Christ. Like he won game. He made Jake Browning look really good. Now sometimes Jake Browning working his butt off, but coach and quarterback are symbiotic. They work together. And you had a coach who worked really well with a backup quarterback last year, instilling confidence, helping him succeed, giving him answers to the test when he needed them. So my point is, like, Will Levis is getting a good coach, some solid, like average, but okay, like definitely not bad receivers. There are way worse receiver rooms in the NFL. An okay defense, actually. Like they're gonna really do their best. And I am wondering if he can take advantage of that opportunity. But certainly we have to say, like, they're not failing him at all. I mean, this is a really okay team around him that gives him a shot to do some good stuff. And if he doesn't succeed, it's on him.
Yeah, I mean, whether you think like Calvin Ridley, DeAndre Hopkins, and Tyler Boyd, as D-Hop lost the step or whatever, but they're going to, those are three receivers that have been in a league for a good amount of time, and they're going to know their assignments. It's not going to be Will Levis is expecting his receiver to, be in one spot, and instead the receiver ran the completely wrong route, and it's a free interception. That's not going to be the case. He should be able to trust that those three are going to be doing the job that they're supposed to be doing at minimum. Whether they're amazing at it or not is, a whole different story. But I think Will Levis has the pieces around him that he needs. I think the Titans have done a good job as far as doing what they could with what they had. And I'm excited to see what can Will Levis realize his talent with the upgraded talent around him. Because it's kind of shocking when other fans do their win-loss predictions for the year against the other teams. Everyone puts the Titans as beating the Titans. And the Titans aren't going to go 0-17. They're a better team than they were last year. I believe that. So it's how good can Will Levis be given that the talent is upgraded?
How do I say this? Like, I know that I'm trying to figure out the right word here. Nathan's well connected, man. Like when I brought Nathan onto the show, he's a high school friend of mine. We've been boys for a long time, like really, truly, like really good friends. But also, like Nathan's well connected in this world, and he'll never tell you. He'll never acknowledge that. I'm probably blowing up his spot as I'm speaking. But I have some pretty good connections in the football world, and like when you watch the Stallions documentary, like there's a whole network of people that talk behind the scenes. There definitely is. Calvin Ridley took what happened with the drops last year really personally. Like he was really frustrated in himself. Calvin Ridley has been like a man on a mission ever since last year's season ended in Jacksonville. He's in Tennessee this year, and man, in Tennessee, there's no one working harder, maybe on the entire team, than Calvin Ridley. Like he really is like a man on fire, just pissed off. He was dropping touchdowns last year. And
I mean, he's a Nick Saban disciple, so I expect nothing less.
Dude, I think he could deliver a really productive, good season, actually. And everyone's out on him. Everyone makes fun of him. There's highlights of him dropping touchdowns last year, but I don't think he's going to do that this year. I think he could actually win a lot of one-on-one matchups and be like a true, really good number one receiver. I'm not saying he will be. I'm saying he could be. And I know he's working like he is. I encourage people, like, it's keep an open mind across the board with football teams, whether that's the Chargers, whether that's the Titans, whether that's the Cardinals. Like, people think I hate the Cardinals. I really don't. I've always got an open mind. Um, I, I'm really open minded about Tennessee. I think they've got a shot to do really well, and really well is maybe a stretch, but like do some stuff. And even if they're not winning games, to be in games and challenging people. Like if they go 0-6 in their division but lose every game by one score, I'm like, well, yeah, that's awesome. Like that would actually be a victory to me. Competitive is what you're aiming for in Tennessee, and competitive losses would be great for the Titans this year.
Yeah, like last year when they upset the Dolphins, they came back and they upset, and that was kind of like more of a blip in their season. You need to see that competitive fight in every game. That would be a victory for the Titans this year.
Yeah. My next one's Buffalo, man. I am so interested to see what Buffalo can bring to the table. Josh Allen was just rated the most overrated player in the NFL.
I saw that.
I don't know what to make of that. Josh Allen, like, he's also, by the way, having like his Tom Brady glow up. Like, you notice the more money he makes, the better and better he looks. Have you noticed that? Like, he's really like, you look at pictures from his rookie year to now, you're like, oh, I wonder what $200 million does to someone. That's it right there. Josh Allen's awesome, man. He's so talented, and I've been pretty low on the Bills. I even said like they're going to go, I think 9-8. They're going to regress. I think they're third in their division behind the Jets and the Dolphins. But I'm looking for reasons to be wrong, I guess. Keon Coleman is someone who I think could be a really, really effective receiver for them. Second round pick out of Florida State, but dude, he was probably a first round talent coming out of Florida State last year. I don't actually know why he wasn't a first round pick. I'm really like Ricky Pearsall was a first round pick, right? And I think Keon Coleman's better. And by the way, we should probably acknowledge, if I'm going to bring up his name, like, I'm glad he's alive. Ricky Pearsall getting shot was, Nathan lives very near where Ricky Pearsall got shot yesterday, and it's a weird, horrible situation. I didn't mean to stumble into that. We should probably give it like an actual conversation, but just let's acknowledge that sucked and it happened. I don't know how to cover that at all. I'm just, that's terrible.
It kind of just happened, so there's not much to say.
Yeah, and I'll probably talk about Nathan, who literally lives like blocks from where that went down. Blocks is a stretch. I don't want to get him in trouble. Don't go to Nathan's house, please. This whole episode, I'm going to blow up Nathan's whole life this episode. But the Bills are fascinating to me, and I wonder how much a great quarterback and a good offensive coordinator, Joe Brady, that I really like. Remember, Joe Brady was the architect behind Joe Burrow becoming the star he was at LSU. The big jump from year 1 to year 2 at LSU was Joe Brady coaching Joe Burrow in college. Like, part of why we have Joe Burrow who he is Joe Burrow worked his ass off, and the other part of it is Joe Brady coached him. Joe Brady's a really, really good quarterback coach as the offensive coordinator in Buffalo. I'm really fascinated to see what they can do with this offense. It's not the biggest names, it's not great, but Tom Brady won a lot with very average names at receiver. And I don't know, I think they're above average in Buffalo in the receiving core. They're just not household names. But Keon Coleman, Curtis Samuel, Khalil Shakir is a deep ball threat. Guy just gets downfield, man. I'm fascinated with what can happen there. Dalton Kincaid's a really incredible tight end. They got 2 of them. Dawson Knox is also there. Like, in fact, their double tight end sets are going to be really, really compelling in Buffalo this year, which is great for their environment they play in. I don't know what to expect from Buffalo. I think I predicted them to be third in their division, but I'm wondering if they can overcome, some of the progression the rest of their division made and the losses. Losing stuff on Diggs is not nothing. I want to pose a question, like, what is Buffalo this year? I'm not really sure, but I'm curious to find out.
Yeah, I don't know if like their Super Bowl window will ever truly be closed when you have as good as like Josh Allen is. Now he would have to go on, some sort of like 2012 Joe Flacco type playoff run to, make it to the Super Bowl for the Bills, just with the talent that they lost. Mike Milano got injured again, which really sucks because he was just coming back from an injury. People have a lot to say on Buffalo because they've put themselves in the conversation the last few years, and they've definitely there's been a lot of turnover, especially on that defense. You know, Tre'Davious White was a cornerstone on their defense for a while. He's no longer there. Um, they've lost a lot of guys for sure on both sides of the ball, and Buffalo's been kind of one of those teams where I took a step back from them this offseason because I'm just like, I have no idea what they're going to look like. I mean, and you were talking about the receivers. I was really interested if Chase Claypool could take what he's learned. I think he got a little bit too big of a head the last when he was in Pittsburgh, and I was hoping that because he's a big body receiver, whether he can realize that or not. I think that he could have helped Buffalo in December, in January. Not a lot, but on a 3rd and 7 when it's cold and snowy and you need a receiver who's really big to make a play. I think that Chase Claypool could have been really nice in a spot there. And he's out for the year, so I was disappointed because that was one of the things that I was most interested about Buffalo this year. They've had a bit of a reset, a bit of a retool. Can Josh Allen elevate the people around him? I mean, if he wants to dispel, whether he cares or not, but if he wants to dispel that most overrated player in the league notion, bringing up the new players around him, whether it's new to the league or new to the team, if he can elevate Buffalo with Joe Brady to what Buffalo has been, despite having less around them, I think it'll keep Buffalo needs to stay in the conversation this year. I think that would be a win for Buffalo. It's not Super Bowl ambitions like it has been, but if they can, almost push to an AFC championship game like they have been while they retool, I think that'll be, I think that's their ceiling this year. And that's okay because I think this year's a down year and they'll bounce back because I believe Josh Allen is that good of a talent in this league.
Couple questions about this team. Is the coach right? Do they have the right coach in place? Sean McDermott, done some good stuff, man. Like, he's not a bad coach at all, but is he the right coach to get, what's his ceiling as a coach? Because we've seen him now multiple years in a row hit a ceiling, run into Kansas City, run into Cincinnati, and not able to win. Do they need to change head coaches in order to win a Super Bowl? I don't know. I just feel like a step backward. What would really shut people up? They have a schedule with a lot of opportunities to quiet people down. They play at Miami, at Baltimore, at Houston, at the Jets. They play Miami again. Of course, Miami Jets are in a division. They play Kansas City at home, and they play the 49ers in back-to-back games. They've got a stretch. Week 11, Kansas City. Week 12, bye week. Week 13, 49ers. Week 14, at Rams. Week 15, at Detroit. What I'm saying is they've got a lot of really, really good teams on their roster. That's why I have them 9-8. I think it reflects they're going to lose a lot more games because their schedule's really tough, and they're not the same team they were last year. You know what shuts up everyone? You win a bunch of those games. You beat Kansas City. You win at Detroit. You win at Houston. Like, I just don't think that's possible. I think they're actually 9-8's a very generous prediction for Buffalo, in my opinion. Honestly, 8-9, maybe it was 8-9. I said something like that. I think it's a big step backward for them, but man, they're gonna have a hard time winning 8 or 9 games this year, given the schedule they have and given where they're at as a team. But if they can do that, you got to tip the cap to Josh Allen. I just don't think they're going to.
Yeah, sometimes the schedule just the way it sets itself out, it's like, oh, this team has a lot of questions, but they're not going to have a chance to prove it because they're not playing any of the big dogs except for, maybe 2 divisional games or something. But, I mean, this is going to be a large sample size for Buffalo. Like you said, the Dolphins, the Ravens, the Texans, the Jets, the Dolphins again, the the Jets again, Chiefs, 49ers, Lions. Like, those are the cream of the crop in the NFL, or what we believe to be the cream of the crop in the NFL.
Look at their schedule. Week 9 to week 15. Miami, Indy, Kansas City, 49ers, Rams, Detroit. Like, that's unbelievably tough. That's like Florida levels of, the two, some of the toughest schedules in football. The Steelers' last 10 games are just going to lead to a horrifying set of losses. If the Bills can survive that stretch, again, one more time, Miami, at Indy, a good Colts team is probably more talented than them. Kansas City, then a bye week, then the 49ers and the Rams, then Detroit. That 6-game stretch is one of the toughest in football this year. Something aligned with like what Florida plays in the SEC, their final 5 games. Like, it's crazy. It's really, really tough. You're not the same. You're not as good. If you can come out of that 3-3, I would be really, really respectful. I'd be like, whoa, that's 3-3 from that 6-game stretch is incredible. They're probably more like 2-4, 1-5 in those 6 games. It's going to define their season, and it's a huge unknown to me. It's a big, scary thing to me, and I just think that's a really tough hill to overcome, especially given you're not the same team. Thankfully, it's later in the year, so if they do, there's time for injuries to happen. Maybe Mahomes gets hurt, Purdy gets hurt. Maybe you're a better team. Just Keon Coleman's more developed by that point, week 9, when that stretch starts. But let's just acknowledge that's a really, really, really difficult stretch of games that I don't know how you overcome that. And then remember earlier in the year, they play at Baltimore, right, at Houston, at the Jets, all back to back to back. Oh, and Jacksonville before Baltimore. Like, dude, they're playing a really ridiculously tough schedule. It's bad news for them.
Well, and they're easier teams, the Rams, the Colts, and the Seahawks. Like, those are not pushover teams. Those are competitive teams. I also do want to add, really quick, I know you said we wouldn't go 2 hours, but you do have a draft starting in.
I'm not worried. I've even said in the chat, like, I got a draft in a couple minutes. They're fine. I'm going to start a draft in a minute. Draft starts right now. Yeah, starting a fantasy draft for tier 3 of the league right now. You're on the clock. I'm the 4th pick. Great. I wanted to say, though, I think even at Seattle, like playing at Seattle, a cross-country trip at that point of the year, that's not a guaranteed win, dude. Like, that's actually really, really tough. And I just don't think anyone's paying attention to how difficult the schedule is for Buffalo. I wonder what Bills fans would say. Like, it'd be cool to get a Bills fan on the show to hear how they would talk about their draft or their season. But I just got Bijan Robinson with the 4th pick. Let's go, baby.
There you go.
These idiots know how to draft in a draft. Dude, I'm telling you, I want to say this for the audience listening. Hey, everyone we got 4 Strong Opinion Sports fantasy leagues. They're all 16-team leagues. A 16-team league is so different than any league any of these guys ever played in before. The only people that drafted well were the people that did it last year. And I'm watching already in the first round of this draft. People are like just overdrafting the wrong positions. They have no idea what they're doing, and it's going to be really fun to watch them struggle. As I think because I've got experience in a league like this, I'm going to win 3 of the 4 leagues just because I've done this before and know how to draft.
Wow, that is. I've been doing fantasy for 10 years. I don't even have 3 league wins under my belt total.
I mean, I'll probably lose the one where we all have done it before, but this other league, these other 3 leagues, the lower tier leagues where people don't know what they're doing yet, is going to be really successful for me, I think. Actually, I have another question. I know you have one more too, but I want to say I haven't picked. I had the number 1 pick in the draft last night, and I didn't pick Christian McCaffrey. I don't know. It's really hard to lead, have as much production as he had last year and stay healthy and do it again a backup year. And they went to a Super Bowl. They played a lot of football last year. A lot of mileage got put onto Christian McCaffrey last year. I don't expect the same year from him. What do you think of that? I think Christian McCaffrey's due for kind of a down year. Is that crazy of me, or does that make sense to you?
No, I think historically that's been the case. I don't think. I mean, you go back. Now, granted, it was a little bit of a different situation, but Le'Veon Bell was like the consensus 1-1 pick. That didn't work out. I mean, you look back. Justin Jefferson last year was the 1-1 pick. He got injured. It's just the NFL. It happens, and it just never. You never have 2 number 1 seasons in a row. It's not how it works.
Yeah,
and so. Despite that, I don't want to doubt a player like Christian McCaffrey. Maybe the 49ers don't give him the same workload, or he tweaks something and misses 2 weeks. Sometimes that's all it takes. There's so many variables, and to be the number 1 player in fantasy, to do it twice is so unlikely. I truly don't believe I wouldn't pick him 1-1.
Yeah.
So I would have made I'm not sure if I would have picked Bijan, but I would not have picked McCaffrey.
I'm picking a lot of people in Atlanta because their schedule's so easy. And Bijan Robinson catches passes and runs the ball. I really like Atlanta to have a lot of production this year because of their schedule. What's your last? I know you got one more question. What is it?
It's nothing too crazy, but who's going to win the number 1 overall pick this year? I think the last few years, it's been a team that I don't think a lot of people would have expected. Last year, it was, Carolina didn't have the selection, but Carolina, had the rights originally to the number 1 overall pick. People wouldn't have predicted them. The year before that, it was Chicago. I don't think people would have predicted them. So most of the time, it's not the team that you think it will be heading into the year. Now, sometimes it is. Jacksonville, we knew a couple years was pretty bad, and they ended up with the number one overall pick. But like, just usually a team, gets a bad injury or the whole team just crumbles apart. So I'm curious. I believe the Patriots are the favorite now. Also, that's who I would guess if I really had to pick. But I'm curious who is going to end up with the number one overall pick heading into the 2025 NFL draft.
To me, you might call me crazy, but I think probably the 8 worst teams in football are the Giants, the Raiders, the Cowboys, the Saints, Arizona, Tampa, the Chargers, and the Patriots. The Chargers, that's pretty harsh. Tampa, I feel weird about. The Cowboys is a tough one. If Dak Prescott gets hurt, they might get the number one pick. Like, I'm serious. Maybe Dak Prescott getting hurt is like the worst thing to happen to Dak Prescott, but it might be great for the Cowboys organization. It's probably the Patriots. It's probably the team I would lean on now, but it's also, you're right. It's never something you expect. It's an injury really throws a wrench in all that. It's really tough to predict. People think I hate Arizona. I feel bad. I want to just say real quick, like I just don't have a lot of confidence in Arizona. They're the worst team in their division. I just don't. I'm curious what you make of Arizona. People just always are commenting that I hate the Arizona Cardinals. I'm so mean. Kyler hasn't played a full season since 2020.
Well, what have they done? And I actually like Arizona as far as what they could do, but I don't blame you because I I just they haven't been good.
Well, where's the evidence to suggest that's going to go well? And I respect Jonathan. I think Jonathan Gannon's a good coach. It's just like they're rebuilding, and it's a long process. It takes a while. Their offense is James Conner and Trey Benson. They're not bad on running back. Marvin Harris Jr. is great. Michael Wilson Jr. I actually drafted him. I like him. He's have a lot of production. Greg Dortch, Trey McBride. Like, they're not terrible on offense. They have no front seven. Like, I would run the ball mercilessly against them just all day long. I'm really not impressed with their defense at all. Like, it's again, it's the front seven that's a problem. They're in the trenches up front on defense, linebackers, defensive line. It's really a problem for the Arizona
they're in a really
Cardinals.
competitive division.
Yeah,
it's not like it's a cakewalk division.
It's like if the Arizona Cardinals were in the NFC South, I would probably be a little higher on them, but they're going to get their ass kicked in their division. They're bad up front. Like, what do you want from me? I'm not hating on Arizona. I'm just not going to give confidence to something that hasn't earned it. It's I would love Arizona to do great and prove me wrong. Their fans are always getting mad at me saying I'm a hater. And I'm like, dude, I don't hate you guys at all. I actually like Phoenix a lot. My adopted parents just bought a house out there. Like, I'm going to go soon. I might get engaged in Arizona, in Phoenix, like, for real. But I really, I just don't. There's no evidence to me that would suggest this is a good football team going to make a playoff win and a playoff game. And if you feel that way, like, you're just really kind of a homer. And I'm not hating on Arizona. I don't mean to be so negative about them. I apologize if it comes across that way. That's not my heart. It's just there's nothing impressive that grabs my attention. Kyler's awesome, dude. I really like Kyler Murray as far as like his talent level, but he really unimpressed me as a leader. Like, he really, really had opportunities to step up and be like the guy as the franchise leader. And he just many, many times in a leadership position really, really dropped the ball, in my opinion. And so I don't know, man. I hope I'm wrong, but I just don't have anything great to say about Arizona. I'm not hating. I'm waiting and looking for things to love about them, and I can't find them.
Yeah, I think people, they never want to hear this, but there's always teams that suck in the NFL. Like, it's never like the worst team in the NFL is a 6-win team. Like the Panthers last year, no one wanted to predict the Panthers to go 2-15. No one wants to predict any team to go 2-15, but teams do go 2-15. And so, like, the Chargers, to predict them to have 4 wins, yeah, does that sound really harsh? But teams only win 4 games in a season a lot. It happens every year, and someone's got to do it. And you just predict the situations that make sense. And so if Cardinals fans want to hate on it, I understand the defensiveness, because you don't want to hear that when you have hope in the offseason. But the reality is if you're looking at every game and that's what you feel is the case, someone's got to be at the bottom.
Yeah, I want to say something. Every year I've done predictions, before. SOS was my full-time job. So I really put a lot of thought into it. And I put a lot of thought. I took 3 weeks to do it, but this is probably the most quick and dirty I've done the predictions process ever, because I'm working a full-time job. I also, most of the predictions process, I was working every night and often like till 3 a.m. as a football coach. Like there's a period of my life where I was just so spread that I had no time at all. So if I'm wrong about predictions this year, part of that's to blame. It's just my attention has been so divided. It's been really, really difficult actually to do everything I'm doing and keep it going. And working a full-time job, by the way, not exactly easy to do on top of running a business and doing everything else. It's just been a lot. And so I'm willing to say I might be wrong here, but what really bothers me about predictions is so often people just go down the list like 10 wins, 9 wins, 8 wins, 11, 6, 7. It's like, no, you have to, there's only, do the math, 16 times 17, I believe is 272. There's literally 272 wins to go around. And when you see a lot of predictions, people just have crazy, unrealistic stuff that doesn't make any sense. And it's like,
I think even Fox Sports like had 20 more wins than can go around. Like, you know what I mean? So they were just doing like what you said, the predictions that they posted. They have way more wins than is possible to give out. So you really do have to go game by game. Otherwise, the prediction just doesn't even make any sense.
Yeah, there's so many unrealistic expectations and predictions that are just like crazy to me. I don't know, man. I just wish I wish people did the problem. The process I do is really difficult. It's like really, it takes so much time and work to do. And you have to predict things that are unpredictable. Like I will actually predict a win that doesn't make any sense because I'm trying to predict things that are unpredictable. For example, I had the Vikings beating the Jets. Like that doesn't make any sense, but like that kind of stuff happens occasionally. I don't know if that's the game that's going to go awry for the Jets, but you can't just pick the best team every single time. You have to consider all the factors and the emotion and the scheduling, and you're coming off a bye week. You just flew 3,000 miles. You're coming off a tough loss here. Like there's so many factors that contribute to a team losing or winning a game. Like, and you have to also predict the unpredictable. Like for real, I try to do that. And I actually think I'm really accurate. Like if you look at my predictions from last year, dude, I nailed so many teams. I think my process works. And I get hated on it. I hate for it all the time. Like I'm really nervous about my Eagles prediction. They feel too high and the Chargers feel too low. I had the Chargers going like 15-2, or sorry, not the Chargers, the Eagles going like 15-2. Eagles going 15-2 feels insanely high. And I still have time to revise that before the season starts. I'm going to try to do that. But when I tried to give wins to other people, I was like, well, but I looked at it for hours, like literally, and I was like, I don't know where to give another loss to the Eagles. Like it just didn't feel obvious to me because the consequence of that was another win to another team that doesn't make sense. So it's just like, I don't know, man. Like the Chargers and Eagles predictions are the hardest for me to go with, but I don't know. I think the other thing you'll hear if you hang on the number, like in video games journalism, you'll hear people rate video games all the time, and the number is one thing, but the context, the meat and potatoes of the review really matters too. Like you got to listen to the review. The what I'm saying in the prediction is often really accurate, even if the final number prediction is not quite right. And I stand by that, man. You have to really, really be careful and thoughtful with what you do. As I'm about to draft David Montgomery, please, I'm one pick away. Please
Let's
not
see.
draft. It's gonna take 54 seconds. This fucking guy's gonna go forever.
I just want to say you do. Oh, you got him. Pick Joe Mixon. There you go. You do gotta you. I mean, it's okay to throw in like the random games that don't make any sense, because if you look back to 2021, the New York Jets, who drafted second overall, beat the Rams, who won the Super Bowl. Like it just so
any given Sunday.
If you predicted that based on the end of season standings, the Rams won the Super Bowl, the Jets picked second, and like with that knowledge, and yet someone predicted the Jets to win, they'd be like, "Are you crazy? The Jets were horrible, and the Rams won the Super Bowl." Well, it happened, so you can't just predict this team's better; they're going to win every game. It's like, no, the better team loses often throughout the year.
I want to find this. The Raiders prediction especially had like one game that was like, that feels crazy, but like it also could happen. Let me find it. The Raiders. I have the Raiders winning and beating Kansas City and beating the Rams. And like, does that make sense? Like the Rams are a better team than the Raiders. Yes. The Rams are a better team than Kansas City. Yes. But like unpredictable, weird things happen. And like, I think you look at my track record, like it's all public information. If anyone wants to get really nerdy, go look at all my predictions over the years. Dude, I've been really accurate, actually, like a lot. I'm very proud of my process, and it does work.
If anyone were to do it and I had the time, I definitely would do that.
Yeah, we need like a historian for the show to go back and like find all the weird things I've said and like tell you. Dude, I think like for real, someone could make because I try to like I make topics all the time. Like, was I right about this? I go back and I watch my old content and I make content about my new content about my old content, basically. I think someone could make an entire YouTube channel dedicated to evaluating my predictions and evaluating the things I say and all the times I was right and wrong. Like someone could really, hey, anyone out there wants to be a content creator, go find my old clips and literally just make content about me being right or wrong and make fun of me being right or also give me credit, please, when I'm wrong, when I'm correct. But like you could make a whole series just about all 658 previous episodes of this show and all the crazy things I've said over the years that worked out or didn't work out. Because some stuff is horribly wrong and some stuff is really right, but it's all interesting in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's another content creator who has a character, I'll say, in his chat named Librarian, and that kind of is Librarian. He'll say, "Librarian, go find this," or you know what I mean, because he's the librarian. He goes through everything, and so yeah, like we need a librarian. If if someone wants to be like, "Oh, I'm looking for this book. I don't know who it's by, but this is kind of what it's about," and then they go and find it. So yeah.
What do you want to end the show today? Unless you have anything else to add.
No, I know we have a Michigan-centric thing you still want to talk about, but if I know we've been going for longer than you were anticipating.
Dude, at this point, why would we cut the show? Let's just ride it out. Especially, it's good to bury it at the end, honestly, because this will probably make a lot of people mad. I watched I had a really strong opinion about the Michigan cheating scandal anyway, all off season, which is that it's totally overblown and ridiculous. Like the sign stealing allegations or whatever. Everyone steals signs. It's so common. Like I think I'm really glad the NCAA got rid of signaling in general. Like, why are we doing it all? It was dumb. It was, Michigan was exploiting one of the dumbest designs of the mechanics of college football anyway. This like holding up cards and I think 8 people send signals and dummy signals. It's all nonsense. We solved the problem, by the way. It's totally gone this year. There's no concern because quarterbacks have a headset in their helmet now. Done and dusted, solved.
It's something that's been in the NFL for decades.
Yes. Like, I don't know why it took the college football so long to adopt that, but it's now done and solved.
I have your answer. It's the NCAA.
Yeah, I'm pretty...
They're a little antiquated.
Dude, I fucking hate the NCAA. Like, they are...
we'll get to that.
My God. Now... So I watched the Connor Stalions documentary, Untold. I want to be very clear. I think Untold fucking sucks. Like they're really bad documentaries, actually. It's kind of like if you give a YouTuber a small budget and access to people they shouldn't have access to. And like they're like, it's very clear. They're like, hey, interview these couple people and then take some B-roll and mash that into a documentary. Actually, for real, like the Connor Stalions one is the most complete documentaries I've seen. Like, and maybe it's going to take time. Untold's going to get better. I think they want to be 30 for 30. They are so very much not 30 for 30. Their depth level it's so far off of that.
They have Netflix money without any of the people that made 30 for 30 what it is.
Yeah, I don't know, man. It's I'd love to see that improve. And I'm open to it being different 2 years from now than it is now. But the Connor Stalions one was the best one I thought in a while. And it's borderline Connor Stalions propaganda. Like but it really did. I walked away really sympathetic. I was already sympathetic to Connor Stalions, but I really liked him even more. This is a kid who was in the Marines. He's really dedicated. He's really disciplined. He loves Michigan football, and he's like a code breaker. I mean, that really was like what he was for Michigan football. His job, his role was to decipher signals, and he just kind of revolutionized that part of college football, especially like if you watch like his cards of how he was even describing the signals. It wasn't a name, it was like literally pictures of what the signal looks like. That's revolutionary. It's really detailed and cool, and he just made it his life to do that and was kind of honestly the best at it in the world. And did he do bad stuff? It does seem like some of the stuff. I got a note here like, hey, why did he buy tickets for other people? Where's the money coming from? having a public Venmo is idiotic. Like there are things about this that don't pass the smell test that I agree like are weird. But dude, I almost guarantee if you do other things, if you look at other colleges in similar situations, like you're going to see a lot of the same nonsense. So I thought they were really weirdly hard on Michigan for some reason. I don't fully understand it. I don't really agree with it or like it. And I'm pretty, as I get Najee Harris, hell yeah. In the draft, I'm pretty laissez-faire. Like I was not deeply offended by the Michigan sign stealing stuff. And I thought it really humanized Connor Stalions, who was just a dude who was willing to do anything it took to help the college he loved in the area he's from. And I thought that was kind of beautiful and cool. And I just think he's almost underappreciated. And it's disappointing to me that he was treated the way he was and got the hate he got. And I've been fired from a place I love. Like I really, really loved the high school I worked for. I wanted to see them win so badly. And like you hear Connor Stalions talk about how it was his dream to be the Michigan football head coach. It's never going to happen now, unfortunately, right? Like that dream is totally crushed and gone because of what went down and how it happened. I actually, the same thing happened to me, like with my coaching at my former high school. And that's heartbreaking. It's sad for that to go that way. And I just walked away with a bunch of sympathy for Connor Stalions and what happened with him. And I just try to be fair and objective. And I don't think he's like this villain, horrible guy that, a lot of people, Ohio State fans especially, will tell you who he is. And I just, before I keep going, like, let's just hear your thoughts. What'd you think of the documentary? Like high level thoughts immediately.
I do think that it is a little bit of like Connor Stalions propaganda. Like it does make him look good. Like you do genuinely feel a little bad for the guy by the end. Like it shows him at the national championship and his team is on the field and he's tearing up and you feel bad because like he's not on the field with him. Whether what he did was right or wrong, the relationships that he had with those people was real. It's not like you can fake
Mm-hmm.
the relationship that you had with the people on the field. And so his desire that he wishes he could be with his favorite coworker or whatever who's on the field right now, like you do feel that's real, that's genuine. And I think if you're denying that, then that's just a little bizarre. Like a little dehumanizing the guy just because he cheated in college football. And it was like a craft of what he's doing. If you watch it, like he took thousands of photos of himself doing every sign that he'd possibly ever seen. I think the NCAA, I think sports leagues in general, they love to make an example out of someone and say like, this is a lone incident and what they did was horrible. Like you look at the MLB and the Houston Astros, what they did was beyond what other teams are doing, but it's a saying like, if you're not cheating in baseball, you're not trying. And yet when the Astros were caught cheating, the league is like, get rid of the Astros doing that because they were cheating, but no one else is cheating. It's like, no, everyone's cheating. And Connor Stalions and Michigan was not the only team, not even sign stealing, but just, I'm sure there's a lot of other stuff going on.
Oh yeah.
I mean, especially before NIL, I want to say there's a great documentary series about a player named Leo Lewis, who is a linebacker for Mississippi State. And it's the bad blood between Ole Miss and Mississippi State. And there was like a lot of shady shit going on. And the NCAA made this one player out as an example of like, oh, what these two teams were doing with him was a rogue incident. But especially pre-NIL, there's a lot of improper benefits going on, to say the least. And a lot of improper benefits that were given out that a player then didn't commit to that team. And they now try to get revenge on that player or what have you. So, yeah, I think the NCAA definitely would love to make Connor Stalions out to be like, this is the cheater. Michigan and this guy are the cheater. And, everything else going on is completely above board. So what he did was wrong, but I also, you can see how he got to the point. Because if you just say like, oh, he was sign stealing, and the way he was doing it, it seems a little ridiculous. But when you see the journey that he went on, it's like, this was slowly built up. He did one thing, then he took it a step further, then he took it a step further, and so on. And I know that they kind of equate what he's doing and college football in general to like warfare, like, you know, the art of war in the documentary. But I kind of had a sense of that even before they mentioned it, because at one point he's, you know, they started the sign stealing at Michigan because, oh, the other people are doing it, you know, they're doing it first or whatever. And that's kind of how like wars in real life are started. You know, people justify, you know, why you're doing the things you're doing. So Connor Stallions and the team at Michigan are like, well, we have to do it because if we don't, you know, we're never going to get ahead. And it's definitely what Michigan did is not like a rogue incident, but it is interesting. Like, where was the money coming from? You know, like how did they get all of Connor Stalions, like his database, basically? How did that make it to the NCAA? It's all very interesting, and I'm curious as more stuff comes out because it's so recent. What we'll find out in the future.
I got an interesting piece of feedback. You know, I work in Tigard, Oregon. My area, I drive around to meet with clients and sell people stuff, is Beaverton, Lake Oswego, and Hillsboro, Oregon, and Tigard. In that area is Nike headquarters and Intel headquarters. And so I deal with a lot of people from Intel. And I don't know if you know this, but Intel's firing and laying off a ton of people. So all the software developers in Intel had to find, or software engineers had to find a place to go. They're all moving into cybersecurity. And so I've built friendships with all these customers and people that worked at Intel and are software engineers and software developers. Their feedback, one of the guys watching a documentary was like, it's absolutely super easy to like hack into someone's email and steal like a fucking, you know, a spreadsheet like that. Yeah. Undoubtedly, that's what someone at Ohio State
did. If you have to, like,
yeah. And then you look at the weird alignments with the reporter and Ryan Day's brother, and there's all this stuff, and I feel like that's part of where like Ohio, you know, Untold kind of fails is they share, and part of why like I don't like Untold. Untold sells one perspective of a story, right? They don't ever do a very good job of showing the other perspective. They try to a little bit here; it's the most they've ever done, but like they really should have interviewed more people from Ohio State and told the Ohio State story and that side and dove into the other side. Yeah. Like this could have been every single Untold documentary I watch. I'm like, man, this could have been like a 7-part series where you really dive in deep rather than just the surface level. But it's because they're literally trying to get content for Netflix, and Netflix said, go interview these couple people and make something about it. It's like when, because look, I'm a content creator. I've made content for so long. Like when something happens, you want it as quickly as you can, get something out about it to give people some kind of content on that topic. That's how Netflix makes these documentaries. It's like, let's get a documentary about this rather than let's do our great journalistic effort to make the best thing possible. So the quality is diminished. And I just feel like a lot of the Ohio State side of stuff got really left out, and the investigation into what really went down from that other side isn't out there. And they just kind of,
I mean, if you think about how fast they were on this documentary, they were recording him at the national championship game. So the season wasn't even over and they were already working on the documentary.
They also don't ever, all of these documentaries are just like a recap, a summary of the public information that's already known. There's never ever some insightful, interesting, like the only part about this documentary that we hadn't seen before is Connor Stalions interviews, like Connor Stallion being humanized, basically. That's the new information we got. 30 for 30, when you watch it, they have information like that. I didn't even know that happened. Like it's totally brand new to everyone. That just doesn't happen with these. They're so surface level, and it's sad and frustrating and disappointing to me. I don't know, man. I just want to say, like, I don't hate Connor Stalions. I think he did cross a line. I think a lot of people cross the line in football, especially in college football. I also one thing I really liked about this documentary, it was the Bo Schembechler, like the team. Like that. I talked about that the other day on the show. Like I didn't know that about that clip at all. I'd never heard that before this exact documentary. And it made me kind of tear up actually. And like made me miss that age of football, that era when things were a little different. And there was an attitude. I also want to say like the Connor Stallions at Central Michigan State thing, that he's at a game on a sideline. It's pretty conspiratorial to say those sunglasses had a camera in them. I don't know if you ever used those kind of sunglasses. They're so like useless and ineffective. Like,
yeah,
that's not. And also like, if you look at like the screenshot, you have to be so inept with technology to think that's one of those sunglass cases. To me, like because that was a glare, like reflection of like a light above them in the sunglasses. Like that's just what happens when you wear sunglasses in that situation, in that setting. Also, there's a gray area here because, and I know this because I've got friends who coach, like, sorry, but there's movement between every college football program across the board. Like I've got friends at this college and this college, and it's like, when you work at Michigan and then you go to Central Michigan, you're still friends with Connor Stalions. You're gonna let him on the sideline. Is it weird to wear Michigan stuff on the Central Michigan sideline? Yeah, that's kind of fucked up and weird. So you wear Central Michigan stuff, and like, I'm not trying to make excuses here. Like, I think that was a bit shady actually what happened there, but also it is a gray area. Like when your friends coach with you and when you coach with someone, you build relationships with someone. That's why it's hard when you get fired. Like those relationships are like thrown away, and it's often really painful and weird, like how that happens. But when you work in coaching, especially, it's such an intimate, close relationship you have to build with the people you coach with. That when you go somewhere else, often you still stay in touch, and then you end up, if you coach for a little while, you end up having coaches like all across the country at almost every team. Of course, those people still talk on Discord and emails and text threads. Like I'm still on the text thread from. I'm not going to say that actually. I'm in text threads I shouldn't be in. And you're well, like either remove me or I'm just going to keep observing what's going on. It's kind of awkward and weird. So my point is, like, there's all this behavior and relationships behind the scenes, and that's how every college football program works. So I just feels like some scapegoating. It's you so often see people that don't really know how it works commenting on stuff and having strong opinions and yelling and angry when it's like, well, like, like you're
everyone on Michigan should be thrown in jail if this picture is real. I know they use that clip in the documentary.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. It's hilarious, but it's like, I don't know, man. I think you're going a bit overboard here. I don't know, man. I just really, who is the starting running back in Washington, the Washington Commanders? Do you know? Is it Brian Robinson?
Probably.
I want to say it is. I hope it is. I can't check the depth chart because
I can check.
Yeah, tell me, is Brian? I gotta know. We're drafting here. I have 25 seconds.
Washington Commanders depth chart. Hold on. It's why is this their defense?
See,
what is this?
See what I mean? It's like what the heck? Fuck it, I'm drafting. I don't care.
The only offense I can see is their left guard and their center.
I know. I was like, they're clearly. I think everything across the board, like Sleeper, all the apps we use to look at stuff, is probably all crashing this weekend because everyone's probably drafting today. You ever think about the server load is probably insane today? But I found myself rooting for Michigan last year. I really wanted to see them return to form. Especially after all that stuff, like Jim Harbaugh wasn't doing this. It's a whole division of, he probably was turning a blind eye to stuff. Like, I think Jim Harbaugh's answer was, I just don't want to know how to get this information. But
I think that's kind of the case with like a lot of companies in the world.
Yeah. And also, like, for real, some of the stuff Connor Stalions was doing was revolutionary. Like, so you're like, well, like, he was changing the game. And so some of that's like, well, of course he's right. He's got his own process that works differently and better than everyone else. I don't know. And here's the part I want to talk about. There's so much bad blood in college football. Everyone hates their opponents, blah, blah, blah. I just think it's sad that the hard work of the players got invalidated. Like, hey, I'm sorry, but did you watch a Michigan football game last year? Like, they were, whether they knew it was a run or a pass or whatever, like, they were also the best team. They were. Like, they
demolished Michigan State, and Michigan State didn't give a single signal.
Yeah, like, talk about sign stealing. They're telling, like, no one had a sign go off in Michigan State and they still kicked their ass. So it's like, I just think there's a lot of people with bad blood being kind of wimps and complaining about shit that doesn't really matter. It's just, I find it really lame. And again, I go back to invalidating the hard work of the players is the biggest crime here. Talk about the adults in the room. Talk about this. I know players are adults too, but like, the players work their asses off, and for their national championship to be stained sucks. And then the other aspect of this, I'll give you some insight into how I got fired. Like, I pissed off the administration by talking shit about the former coach. Like, let's be very clear. That's what happened. And it offended people above me. And so I got fired. And I actually felt bad. I created a distraction. I created all this buzz. And what I said on this podcast, like, it pissed off people and brought distraction. And so I just peacefully was like, I want to walk away and just leave. And I'm probably going to talk about this. I'm still adding to it, but I don't mean to. I just telling you how it works. They're not on my radar. I don't pay attention anymore. And I feel bad because I actually want the high school I coached at briefly. I very much want to see them win. And I think the players there are good enough to win a state championship, like literally for real. And it makes me sad if they don't achieve that. That's really disappointing because they're capable of that. And if I get in their way at all, that's really sad and unfortunate. I think similarly, Connor Stalions felt bad, like felt like a distraction and didn't want to be like a thing he loved. He ended up hurting a thing he loved, which is like the exact opposite of what he was trying to do. And I relate to that. I go, oh, dude, like I get it, man. That sucks, and I feel bad for you. I really did walk away feeling bad for Connor Stalions. It's like, this guy is staying forever. He's getting hated on left and right. Like I was even watching the halftime show of I was Notre Dame Texas A&M last night, and they're like shitting all over Connor Stalions and like, well, his high school football team lost on Friday night. It's like, guys,
What?
Connor Stalions is a defensive coordinator at a high school football program that was awful and went 1-8 last year. Sorry, he's not going to win his first game. It's going to go bad. It's going to take time to turn things around. I just think there's so much anger and unfairness, and it makes me want to talk to Connor Stalions. He's probably a nice guy. I don't know. I just didn't get evil villain vibes, and I'm sure the documentary's trying to make us do that, but I walked away wanting to be fair and wanting to be kind, and I felt lots of opportunity to do that. I wanted to talk about all of it because it's a guy dedicated to his program who got pretty harshly scapegoated by the program he was coaching at and the NCAA especially. And I just felt bad about it. I wanted to talk about it a little bit because it felt wrong. It felt unfair. I do think he broke some stuff. Like, again, I'll go back. I'll say this one more time. Why was he paying for his friends to go to games? Where did the money come from? What's up with the public Venmo? The public Venmo is idiotic, and the other stuff seemed like it was shady. But I wonder, like, if we look into every other college football program, how much of that was going on. Unfortunately, Connor Stalions was victim of being the best at what he was doing. Everyone's doing shady shit, and he was the best at it. And like, well, you kind of got punished for that. But I don't have much more to add. I'm curious if you do. But I really encourage everyone to watch it. It's definitely the best of these documentaries, but it like every other Untold documentary, left me thirsting for more. I was like, this should have been a multi-part series. Rather, like 30 for 30 never leaves me feeling like I didn't get all the answers or I didn't get enough from this. And every single time I watch one of these Untold documentaries, I'm always like, you left out a lot, didn't you? I just feel that way. But I encourage people, if you hate Connor Stalions, watch it because he's a person who really was dedicated to helping a thing he deeply loves, and it didn't work out for him, and that sucks. And I just feel bad about that. Like I just feel bad for him.
Yeah, like again, like I was saying, if you're kind of denying like the personal relationships that he had, that's just dehumanizing him for the sake of, being angry at, Michigan and what he did. I do, part of kind of Untold being a little, I don't know, overzealous is one part they were talking about, like this underground community of sign stealers and stuff, and it shows him like putting on like a black hoodie and he's walking down like an alleyway covered in graffiti and stuff. That's not that exchange is happening on like an iMessage group or like a Discord like chat. Like he's probably like, hey, do you have the signs? Yeah, like it literally, they painted it out like he's like selling drugs or something, like visually. But like, no, he's sending a text probably that's like, hey, do you have this, do you have this drive from the Central Michigan game, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, here you go, whatever. Like it's not some, like actually physically underground. And I also find it hilarious, like all the people that are like, oh, was that Connor, the Central Michigan, that's one thing. But like there was just a complete tire fire as far as like people thinking that they spotted him at different sidelines afterwards. And it's funny because he's like the most generic, like white dude of all time. Like he's you know what I mean? He's just the most average. So of course you're going to spot him in like 100 places, especially if someone's wearing a hat and sunglasses.
Yeah. Like I know 100 people that look like Connor Stalions, bald with a little bit of facial hair, like, and a nice
if
build.
You put sunglasses and a hat on me, and if I trim my hair a little bit so it wasn't like sticking out, and I grew my beard out just a little bit, and I was far off, where you're zooming in, you know what I mean? You could think anyone is Connor Stalions.
Yeah, I also think people don't realize how much sharing goes on behind the scenes, like how much people are talking to each other.
Yeah.
there's a Gardner Minshew film analysis I did very early on in my career. Where do you think I got the film, the all 22 of Gardner Minshew? I went to Washington State. Like, does anyone ever ask that question? Like, where people get the film? Where people get it's like someone sent me an email with a link to download everything. Someone high up that I miss and appreciate. Like, it's like, man, that happens everywhere. There's always little quote. They call them underground networks, but it's like it's just how it works. Like, everyone shares film. Everyone gets that stuff. Content creators do it. Everyone in the football world does that. That's how football works. Hate to break it to you, but there's all these chats, there's all these Discord servers, there's all these group chats, there's all these email threads. That's how everyone gets everything. Like, everyone gets filmed that way. Like, that's what works. That's how it happens. And so I just think there's a lot of uneducated people really angry about stuff. And that's all I really have to say. It's just it's also, I do want to say one thing about Michigan, though. I don't think Michigan did Connor Stalions dirty in that, like, they cut him off immediately. That's what they had to do. Like, when you fire someone, you have to move forward, not backward. They're not with us. They're gone. Let's move on. That's what you have to do.
Cold turkey.
Like, hey, everyone I would have really appreciated when I got fired for the people that I coached with to reach out to me. It's like, hey, sorry, didn't work out. Appreciate you, whatever. None of my friends who I'd been friends with for years did that. But I also understand, like, when that happens, you just move on. You just move forward and forget and move on. And that's what Connor Stalions had to happen with Connor Stalions in Michigan too. Like, they couldn't linger on him. They couldn't give him attention. He was creating a distraction a little bit. Like, you just had to forget it and wipe it. But I do really encourage everyone, watch this documentary. It's fascinating. It's fun. It gives people a little bit, hopefully, more understanding of the inner workings of college football. And football in general is all like that at every level. But I also, again, I go back to this. Why do we have such a secrecy culture in America? We don't talk about stuff. It affects relationships. It affects, dude, when I was my ex-girlfriend, I dated a girl who, I just freely share information. I don't give a fuck. We were dating and I moved to Hawaii. I got us at a place and she chose not to come. It fucking sucked. You think I didn't feel like hung out to dry? But I noticed in her family, there was a culture of like, hey, all the uncomfortable stuff in the room, they just don't talk about it. They sweep everything under a rug. And American culture is kind of like that too, like where we just don't talk about the bad stuff. We don't talk about the uncomfortable stuff. We just sweep everything under the rug as a society. And it's weird. Why can't we? You're not talking shit if you're talking honestly. And I just think that
it's an observation.
Yeah. Or even it's a true experience. Like when Tua says, hey, it sucks to work for someone who doesn't want you, doesn't like you. That's not him being an asshole to Brian Flores. That's him being honest. So I think we punish people for what they say way too much. And I don't know, man.
Brian Flores is my team's defensive coordinator. I love Brian Flores. However, I'm not going to go after Tua and be like, what? That didn't happen. Like, if Tua said it happened, he was in the dang room. I wasn't in the room. I'm sitting at my desk at home. So if Tua said that happened, then it probably damn for sure happened. And that was the reality of the situation.
Yeah, man. I just people are so harsh.
It shouldn't be that shocking. It shouldn't be that like what Tua said was like shocking. It's like, what? Someone coming out and said something that happened? Like, no, we should probably have more of that.
Yeah, I agree. Well, man, now we're at the part of the draft where I got to start paying attention because now we're drafting people like 4-string running backs that I've never heard of in my entire life. So I should go and focus on this freaking draft. I love you. Thank you for your time, man. I love you so much. I really, really, truly do appreciate you. And I think today was a great episode. Like, this is exactly what I wanted. Way longer than I thought we would go, but it was fun.
I knew it would be longer.
Isn't it always? Do we ever do a short episode? Like, dude, the one I did with Nathan the other day was 4.5 hours. I was like,
yes,
fuck. Like, it's a lot. It's a lot of football. I mean, I'm gonna do 3 episodes this week probably. So and they're all gonna be long. I don't know what to say. Because I think I'm gonna do a Patreon exclusive episode at the end of the week too, guys. I love you so much. Thanks for listening. Logan, dude, you're the best. You're the man. I hope you feel appreciated. I really do appreciate you and everything you do to help me and help the show go forward. And I want to reward you every way I can when I can. I just really, really, truly do appreciate you, man. I love you a lot. And it's fun to, it's weird to say like work with you, but we do. We like work together. We collaborate on a lot of stuff. And you're such a fun and easy person to collaborate with. And I very much appreciate it.
Quick aside, but like I did percussion in high school and I never cared to be like the the dude on the drum kit or the snare drum or whatever. I liked playing the whip one time, and then you run over and play 2 bars of blocks. So like I enjoy just kind of pulling a string here, and then no one sees me but they heard me, and then I'm over there. So it's kind of what I do and enjoy doing, and I wouldn't do it if I wasn't enjoying myself. So it's definitely a fun opportunity for me. So I appreciate it. And I appreciate you thanking me for it, even though I don't. Doesn't matter to me.
Well, anyway, man, I love you. Enjoy. I think, what time do you want to get a word on? Like a little, what do you think's going to happen? LSU USC today. It's in 3 hours.
3 hours.
I mean, by the way, this will probably come out after that's happened. Like, but it's fun to say. It's like fun to.
What? You're not going to edit this in. You're not going to get this out in the next 2 hours. Yeah. I don't think YouTube would either. No, I don't have any comments on the game. I'm just going to check the box score, and I'm going to go get food because it's 3 p.m. and I have not eaten. I'm going to go get some hot pot, so I'm very excited for that.
Yeah, LSU beats USC. I think comfortably, but I hope USC can challenge them a little bit. It'd be interesting if USC could. I think LSU wins regardless. I have to pee so bad. I don't know if you do too, but like we've been going for, 3 hours and 12 minutes, and we haven't moved. Me and Nathan usually take a break, by the way. We usually pause, and like there's a couple cuts you'll notice. None here at all. We're just raw dogging it, going the whole time. Probably the wrong thing to say when you're recording with your bro, but whatever. Anyway, man, I love you. Have a good night, and thanks so much.
Yeah, you as well. Yep.
Take care, man.